Should Christians use sex toys?
When your homosexual friend invites you to their wedding, should you attend?
And what's the formula for the perfect meme? Welcome back to another episode of Young Married Christian Halloween Edition. We're on a mission to see a gospel-centered home made available to every single child in the foster care system. And in this episode, Debo talks to the guys behind Memes for Jesus and Christians Who Curse Sometimes, two massive meme accounts.
You would even probably consider them meme lords, and they're definitely a part of the meme Illuminati, which we will definitely get into in this interview.
Sounds a little bit blasphemous, but we're going to go with it anyway.
Yeah, almost heretical for sure. In this episode, speaking of heretical, we talked about penis pics and why we still see them on Christian dating apps. So parents, be careful with your teenagers and young adult kids.
We also talked about setting schedules for your kids, as well as should you do time out for your kids. Man, it's 2021. Things are changing.
And we even got into conspiracy theories and some that you probably wouldn't even expect, like was Beyonce even ever pregnant? And then about how Christians Who Curse Sometimes even saved someone from a cult.
What cult? Was this a cult? Oh.
Like, come on now.
In his DMs.
Yeah.
In his DMs.
Yeah, so happy Halloween, y'all. Hold on to your prayer beats, Karen, because we are young, married, woo, Christian. I can't believe you're a pickle.
Animal Kingdom, until they get that kite show under control, I feel at risk going there.
For two meme account guys, though, that would be the ultimate meme to make is the kite show right now. Like, Disney made that for you guys to come here this week.
If I know about it. Yeah, I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
No, so Disney, who's just like on target 99.9% of the time, sometimes has that 0.1% of just pure disaster. And when they miss spectacularly, and it's amazing. So they built this kite show for Animal Kingdom, and all the kites just like look like craft projects, and they're like crashing all over the place because like Disney can control a lot, but they can't control the wind.
Yeah.
So it's just like all this video footage is coming out, and I can't not laugh every time I see one.
Yeah, I'm imagining every time a kite hits a tree, Pocahontas is over on the sidelines, like messing with the wind and slamming stuff. She's like, "Let me have a show. I need the spotlight. Have you forgotten about me? Come on." Yeah, it's when you say 99%. Just so you realize, Miles Morales, and for those that are just listening and not watching, this is our Halloween episode, so we're in the studio right now in costume. More on that to come. But anyways, the 1% typically happens in that stage area at Animal Kingdom. I feel like they've had 3 failed shows back to back to back, 4 if you count both iterations of Rivers of Light. But yeah, I wanted this to be an experience for you guys where your wives wouldn't feel, like left out as much as possible. And so that's why for dinner Tuesday night, I booked Raglan Road, and we get there, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, my wife loves Ireland." And
you texted us and said, I booked a dude place so they wouldn't be jealous. And I read that text to my wife, and she goes, "That sounds like exactly where I'd want to go."
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I felt so bad. I'm going to take these sunglasses off. So yeah, for those of you listening in, this is our Halloween episode. I highly recommend that if you're ever going to watch one episode on YouTube, this should be the one, because we are here chilling in the studio. I am dressed fully like Burt Macklin, FBI, a.k.a. Chris Pratt, a.k.a. I'm still just Debo. And in the room with me, I've got Spider-Man, a.k.a. Christians Who Curse Sometimes, a.k.a. Mike. And then next to him, I've got Miles Morales, a.k.a. I've got Spider-Man, a.k.a. Miles Morales, a.k.a. Memes for Jesus, a.k.a. Matt. And he has just revealed himself. Just his face, not any other way. But we're here. We're excited to have this podcast go live Halloween week. Now I'm curious, you guys said that you ate really well. I know you were saying that the suit was a little tight, and that was due to muscle mass, not too many Mickey pretzels. But I'm curious on a Sunday, because I'm a huge fast foodie. I'm curious on a Sunday, So you already know it ain't pretty blessed. If you're going through a drive-through, what are you guys going? Where does Spider-Man eat?
Why would you pick Sunday? Because that automatically eliminates Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
I hate that you had to specify a day of the week. Is that why you do that? Because you have Christians in here?
That's the purpose. I want to put Christians on the spot for only liking Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my goodness, there's other restaurants? There's other drive-thrus?
I'm trying to think drive-through.
Oh, I love that you're struggling because I know mine without even thinking about it. It's Taco Bell, hands down. Because it's cheap. It's good, and I don't understand. I can't relate to the people who sit and say like, "Oh, well, it sends you to the bathroom and gives you diarrhea." I've never had that experience with Taco Bell. It's always been a great experience. The only thing they need to stop doing is taking good stuff off the menu. Every time they have a hit or it's a slam dunk, and I get so excited, they get rid of it next time I'm there, and it's awful. That's the only negative thing I have to say about them.
I 100% agree. They'll put something for $1 that is more delicious than anything else they've ever had, and then you know that you have 30 days. So it's like,
exactly.
I guess I better eat this 30 straight days because you don't know what's coming next month.
Man, okay, so like this isn't a drive-through place, but we go to a place called Mission Barbecue. I don't know if you're familiar.
Yeah.
That's our like Sunday place. If it's not that, then we'll just do a Wendy's. We'll be basic grandparents.
Wendy's.
Go to Wendy's. I mean, I like Wendy's. You know, they have a great Twitter. You know what I mean? The food is good. They don't cut corners. Junior bacon cheese. I love me a junior bacon cheeseburger.
Fresh, never frozen.
Yeah. And you know, it's affordable, and yeah, it's not McDonald's, so that's my go-to.
Okay, here's my confession. Last night at about 11 p.m., I was at Walmart buying this costume. And while I was at Walmart buying this costume, I saw these Wendy's Pringles. So Pringles has now made a Wendy's spicy chicken sandwich.
Nah.
Pringles. I had to get it, man.
Why wouldn't you? Don't say nah until you tried it. Don't be so quick.
Well, Pringles needs to be stopped.
Why?
They're evil, man. You can't make a chip out of everything. You can't do it.
They're doing it.
You can't make a pickle chip. I don't care how delicious some people might think it is. You don't make. No, some things just need to not be touched. That's a vile creation.
Here's the thing. Don't go against Pringles for that. You can live your life however you want. Don't deprive the rest of us from your bad decisions. Because you don't know what a good chip tastes like.
We got a pickle chipper over here.
Pickle chipper.
No, not necessarily a pickle chip. I'm just the type of guy that whenever I'm a marketer's dream, whenever I see that like new product, I have to try it. I have to buy it.
Same.
So like when Lay's was doing that thing where they were like having people come up with the flavors and all that, I would buy 1, 2, 3, all of them in my cart. I'd bring them home. I'd eat 2 of them, and then the bag would sit in my shelf if I didn't like it for a long time. But I'd be same with Oreo. When Oreo was doing all those weird flavors, I was first in line. I was grabbing it top of my cart. I was ready to go.
And don't you feel it's a little weird to eat a surreal chip? It's like, we have vacuum cleaner chips, guys. Check out the new flavor.
Again, you keep making your bad decisions and don't deprive the rest of us.
I remember in high school, my art teacher, he made me think about Pringles in a totally different way, and he said, what about that Pringle on the bottom of the stack? He's not only taking on the weight of his entire family, his entire life, but he is listening and watching you eat his whole family, knowing his day is coming. Until, he's probably all crumbled up by the end of it. So he's just getting beaten up and destroyed. I was like, man, this is the saddest chip in the world.
Sad existence being a chip.
Yeah. Here we are in the studio with our costumes on. I'm super excited to be dressed up as not only one of my favorite actors, but my favorite character from Parks and Rec, which is probably my favorite show of all time. But I am curious on your guys' thoughts on Halloween, because growing up, and I'm sure that when people hear that we're doing a Halloween episode, or when they see that we're dressed in Halloween costume, I'm sure there's going to be people that are already against that. But like growing up as a kid, I remember Halloween just being the time that you all jumped into the back of your dad's truck, and he'd drive you into a neighborhood. Everybody'd jump out, and you'd go door to door, and you'd have all kinds of great candy, and sometimes those popcorn balls that were really hard and nasty, and you try to trade your friend for a Snickers, and you don't think about it as a kid.
So what you're telling me is that you're not a Christian. Is that what you're telling me?
I'm just saying that Satan was worshipped. I'm I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are on celebrating Halloween.
It's interesting because the church has such a weird relationship with Halloween because it's like the day before All Saints Day, like a very like Catholic holiday. But the thing is churches love to dance around Halloween without saying the word Halloween. Every church I see has a harvest festival, autumn festival, all this stuff. So a church I went to for a while decided that the pastor hated that everybody just danced around it and didn't say, kids are dressing up, we're giving them candy, that is Halloween, we just need to call it Halloween. So they changed it from Harvest Festival to Halloween, and I think like there was all this infighting about it on whether or not that they just gave it up again. And it's that, but all the weird names that churches come up with, like I knew a church that called it the 1031 Festival, or things like that, where they're just coming up with all these things that are Halloween but aren't. And in my opinion, churches just need to commit or not do it. Like you need to say, hey, we're having a Halloween party, we're doing trick-or-treating, trunk-or-treat, all that stuff, and say it's Halloween, or just say like, you know what, we don't believe in this. But to do that weird middle ground where it's like, we want to do the fun stuff, but not call it Halloween, it sends a confusing message to a community that might not understand Christianity. So I just want them to like commit, say like, no, we can have fun, we can do Halloween, or like, you know what, we don't believe this. But to do that weird middle ground just leaves like a tension in people that makes people uncomfortable.
Yeah, I'm just gonna dive headfirst into the fact that I am a Calvinist and I'm Reformed. Like I can't have a conversation without letting someone know my own personal theological convictions. So there you go, just get it out of the way. But most of the people that are in my camp don't like holidays whatsoever because it's a holy day, quote unquote. And only one day should be holy is the Lord's Day. You know, it's like this rage that comes from that community. That's more like of a Puritan origin. But I mean, so they don't celebrate Christmas, they don't celebrate Thanksgiving, all pagan. No holy days except for Christmas, except for Sunday. And but they will, on the low celebrate Christmas. Like, yeah, it's a little gift for you. But that's the thing. It's like most of our holidays have pagan origins that have been since redeemed and repurposed, for the glorification of God. And I'm like, isn't that what the gospel is? You mean, if you really want to go deep into it, we redeem things that are unholy and use them to glorify God. That's what God did with us. So it's like, why can't you wear funny costumes and say, I'm doing this for fun, not because I worship Beelzebub? You know what I mean? Like, do I look like I'm worshiping Beelzebub looking directly in the camera? Do I look like I'm worshiping Beelzebub because I look like Spider-Man right now? I don't think so. If you think so, send me an email, but like, I'm not gonna read it.
Yeah, I think that for
sorry, just ranted.
I love that. Just send him an email. He won't read it. Just so you guys know, okay? Memes for Jesus. They don't reply to emails.
No, we do.
Yeah.
Did you celebrate it growing up though? I'm always fascinated to see like what Christians did or didn't, because so many people like they grow up and when they go like all out and become that Halloween house that has like all the inflatables on, or they just totally like shut it down.
So that's the thing is like for me growing up, Halloween, like I said, we would all jump into the back of a pickup truck when that was like okay, and we didn't realize that was super dangerous. But we'd have like 10 kids in the back of a pickup truck, and you'd roll up into a neighborhood, you'd jump out, you'd run around, get a bunch of free candy that your parents didn't have to pay for, and they were like, this is awesome. We can feed our kids for the next like 3 months. Like we're good until the next year. And it allowed, me to embrace my imagination. I grew up in the 90s, so Barney was a huge thing. And so being able to dress up as my favorite character, which probably now...
You dressed up as Barney?
No.
Yeah, I heard that too.
No, sorry. No, I was Michelangelo, of course. I was straight Ninja Turtling, Cowabunga, bro. And, like I talked to my fiance about it too. Ashley, she said that like when she was in college, she had these roommates in her dorm that were very against Halloween. One day, she didn't know this, she just puts up some decorations, some fall Halloween kind of decorations. And when she gets back to the dorm, everything's ripped down. And she's like, oh, okay, maybe a big gust of wind came through. So she puts everything back up again. Sure enough, it gets taken, and it's like every day she'd put it up, they'd take it down. And they would never say anything to her. They would just like do it like kind of sneakily. Well, finally she confronts them, and they're like, "Yeah, we did. We're against Halloween. We're Christians."
Those are 100% Karens in training.
Yeah.
That's like that's the start of a Karen.
That's
before the full evolution.
That's terrorism.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? She ruined her room.
Well, and the best part of the story is that on Halloween night, her roommates that were tearing down her Halloween decorations every single day leading up to Halloween, they're all dressed in Halloween costumes going to celebrate at a Halloween party. And she's like, ho, 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 whoa, 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 whoa. What are you guys doing?
See, to me, if people truly think it's satanic and think it's a cult or whatever it is, but they want to do all the other stuff, to me that's the same as saying, like, I'm going to step into a satanic church. I'm not going to worship, but I'm going to step into the church. I just want to see what it looks like. If they truly believe that it's satanic occult, then but they're practicing parts of it, that's the equivalent to me. Like, we've got to just say, like, no, I don't believe it's a cult, I don't believe it's satanic, and here's why. I think the reason we go halfway is a lot of people don't know why. It makes them feel uncomfortable, and I think that's fine. It's fine to feel uncomfortable. Like, if you don't like seeing scary stuff and that the media promotes scary movies and that kids are wearing scary costumes, it's fine to say, hey, I don't like scary things. It's just something that makes me uncomfortable. Do I think Halloween is good or bad? Say and back it up with scripture. And then commit or don't commit. That's right. It just feels so weird to me. I just don't like how Christians make it such a weird holiday.
Yeah, I agree. And if we're going to talk about Halloween, we also got to talk about Santa Claus. Because I think that is something that growing up, I'm from a town called Santa Claus.
Oh, wow.
So growing up in the town of Santa Claus, it wasn't even a question of, are we going to do the Santa thing or are we not going to do the Santa thing? Like, he's literally our town's mascot. I mean, for goodness sake, we have a theme park called Holiday World. So if anybody's going to be celebrating every holiday, it's going to be this kid, because I grew up every summer going and riding rides in the holidays. You know, I felt like I was Jack Skellington going through the trees into the different holidays. And so to me, I just always saw it as like this fun way of opening up kids' imagination and like magic and maybe, you know, maybe we shouldn't be believing in magic, but I feel like that realize magic is miracles when you get older. So yeah, what are your guys' thoughts on Santa Claus? Do you do that with your kids?
if you're listening in the car with kids, maybe turn this down a little bit.
Or just off, maybe.
It's just a warning, because I don't want to ruin the spirit of Christmas for kids. But there's a member of my family that they don't do Santa Claus with their kids, because they don't want to confuse their kids with Jesus is real but Santa Claus is not. Like, when their kids eventually, this is the part I wanted to warn you about, when their kids find out that Santa Claus is not real and they start questioning other things, they don't want to sit and have that conversation, which is fine on them. To each their own. But I thought that was an interesting perspective. But to me, like, it's totally fine. Like, have fun, have those conversations with your kids. And I think that, like, they see it as a bad thing. I see it as a good thing to talk about the things that are real and the things that aren't, and why they're real, and why we do things as a culture and why we do things as a faith are two totally different things.
I want to kind of backtrack to when you said magic is miracles. Did you say that?
Yeah. Well,
Can you spell it? I don't know where you get that from.
Sorry, I'm
burnt.
I'm thinking as like when you're a kid and you think, oh, when I'm watching this movie and there's something that's magical that happens, something that can't be explained, and then you realize when you get older and you realize, like, if there's something that can't be explained, that's called a miracle.
Okay.
Now, obviously, if you go to a magic show, you're seeing magic, but it is trickery.
You're ready to argue. I can his
like,
wheels are spinning on the tar.
I legit just was curious. I love a good fight. I was legit curious what he meant by that.
All right, Spider-Man, let's go.
Oh shoot! Yeah, no. Like I said, I'm always down to I love arguing theology, debating theology, not to like tear the other person down, but like to gain insight on what they believe and just kind of throw ideas back and forth. That's just my purpose in life. But no, like I said, I was genuinely curious on what that meant. But that makes sense, like what you said, that like there is actual power that exists in the Holy Spirit. So yeah, I'm cool. No fighting.
Okay. I just making sure. And I know that, like, I've seen a lot of people explain Santa Claus to their kids.
Yeah.
Like, once their kids get old enough and they're like, okay, so the Santa thing isn't real. and then they explain it as, well, actually, like, anyone can become a Santa Claus. And I don't know if you guys have heard the whole theory of, like, teaching your kids then to become a Santa Claus of their own, just meaning that
No, but that's beautiful. I've never thought of that before.
yeah, and so then it's like the parents don't lose trust. The parents then are able to show their kids that you can become a Santa Claus for somebody else. And so the story that I read was a kid choosing his neighbor, didn't let his neighbor know at all, but saw her like walk in and out of her door to like pick up her mail every day barefoot. And so the kid thought, man, she probably needs some slippers. And so one day he just bought her some slippers, left them at her door, and said it's from Santa. And so that, to me, is the perfect way to allow your kid to have that magic, that childhood, the imagination of Santa, and then as they get older realize, hey, this is something that you can keep doing for your younger siblings, and for the kids in class that are probably going to say, like, oh, Santa ain't real, and be like, actually, no, I'm a Santa, you know, and then explain to those kids what being a Santa actually means is like giving without the person knowing, because that teaches you humility and teaches you how to not always want gratification and acknowledgement for your good deeds.
We're getting some Christmas shoes territory here.
Yeah. What about this? Ain't no Halloween, but you got duped. It's the Christmas special.
But yeah, so going with you know, Halloween being tons of fun as a kid, Christmas being tons of fun as a kid, away from holidays, is there anything else maybe when you were a kid that maybe just isn't as fun as an adult? Not saying that Christmas and Halloween aren't as fun as adults, but is there anything you can think back to, like, man, when I was a kid, this was a ton of fun, but now, not as fun?
I think television was like legit magical in the 90s, which is why you have so many people that are millennials that are just like, I wish I could go back, you know, and then there's like such a nostalgia rage that's out there, where we just want that time back, because I think we were like the only, well, not the only Americans, but like one of the biggest generations of Americans that had like a really great childhood, at least when it comes to like the media that we were given. The cartoons were legendary, but like now I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna watch my old cartoons, and I'm not gonna let my son see the cartoons that are happening right now. They're just not, you know what I mean? It doesn't have the magic that it used to have. Now it's like corporate cartoons, and it's like it's put through an algorithm, and it's like, oh, the kids will like this, and it's just garbage. It's just like tuna fish, you know? It's completely, you know, contrived and put together. And where back in the day, cartoons like had actual like orchestras to them, like actual, like they did like Mozart pieces for Looney Tunes. They did, you know, hand-drawn animation. I mean, maybe they still do that. I won't, you know, paint a broad brush, but there was like some life to the cartoons back then, where now I'm like, I just can't enjoy it. I'm sorry. Maybe you can help me. What do you think?
See, I just think we need more songs in the church with hand motions for adults.
Yes.
Let me tell, like, we do it as kids. We get like all the fun songs with hand motions. We get them as teenagers. There were a lot of worship songs that had, you know, hand motions in youth group. But then once you go through college, the hand motions go away. They keep going for the kids. We just need some subtle, like some like fun beats to clap or something like that in worship. That's like everybody knows what to do. We've got that Christian bond. You know, I saw John Christ perform one time, and he said, he goes, "You want me to prove to you that Christianity is a cult?" And he just yells, "I am a C," and the whole audience goes, "I am a CH," and all starts like dancing, clapping together. But I think there's something to be said for having that kind of shared bond of like those fun moments we had as kids. I think that's why we think of Sunday school and youth group with such fond memories, is because we had those little things that like were not like, you feel included, you feel like part of the group, it feels cool, and then when you get an adult, they go away. So let's get some of those worship people on it. Chris McClarney, if he's listening,
Yes, Chris.
let's get him on it.
I don't know, dude. I think you just gotta go to a better charismatic church, dude. They got all the hand signals.
Well, I just want something between Baptist and Pentecostal. Let's find that middle ground where we're not running in circles, but we're not standing still.
Yeah, the whole time you're saying this, I'm thinking of Jesus Image right down the road here in Orlando, and they got like the flags waving and people mosh pitting.
We just need some waves of mercy.
Yes.
Yes. I know I used to choreograph kids worship for my old church back in Kentucky.
Was that a job?
Well, I mean, it was volunteer. I got paid $0.
Okay.
So to call it a job now.
Yeah.
So I would choreograph and lead worship. And one time they had the idea of let's let Debo go in front of the adult church and do the dance moves with the live band. And so the live band was playing these more like kid songs. I was doing the dances with a couple kids on stage, and then we had all of kids church in the front, like a mosh pit, and the kids are all doing the stuff, and I'm looking out, and it was so much fun to see some of the adults also doing the dance moves with it. And that honestly for me would be the ideal type of worship, because when I go to church, I'm a dancer by nature, and so when I worship God, I love to dance. And I don't know sign language, but if you're watching me in church, you might think that this guy halfway knows sign language, because I feel like I'm signing as I am worshiping. I should probably learn sign language just so I can do that with it, because I think that that's really cool. But anyways, yeah, when I was a kid, I thought Lunchables were like amazing. Have you guys went back as adults to try those? Because they're not that good.
Well, I've bought them for my kids, like on those like lazy days when I don't feel like cooking. I'll buy it for my kids, and I'll try it. Like my kids like make me little sandwiches and hand them to me, and I'm like, they're okay.
Yeah,
they're okay. I remember them being much more exciting because like for me they were like the special, expensive. I think in my head as a kid I imagined them being more expensive because like they're like $1.
Yeah, they're so
like,
cheap.
Why was my mom making such a big deal about not buying them for me as a kid? But like they were always like on field trip days or something like that. When you had a special day, you got a Lunchable, and that's why I think I built it up. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna buy these for my kids more often. And then I realized like, no, it's just not good. It's like especially the pizza ones, or the pizza where it was also like unrefrigerated. I think so. It's like that paste of like tomato sauce with the cheese that's probably been sitting out for months on the shelf.
Yeah. Because the reason why I asked this question is we were talking the other night about board games, and I was going through my board game collection looking for the Here to Slay game that I was trying to remember, and I saw that I had some of those like simplistic old kid games like Candyland, Chutes and Ladders, and I was thinking, because I went to the store, they were like $5. I was so excited, I bought them. And then I brought them home and I played them once, and I was like, oh wow, this is just not fun. Like as an adult playing it, like maybe with your kids it's fun. And so I just started thinking of like, okay, what else is not as good as an adult? And I was like, Lunchables, slides, rolling down hills.
Who said slides aren't fun as adults?
Okay, water slides.
I didn't say that.
Water slides are awesome. Regular slides, I feel like I'm moving like sloth speed. I'm having to like.
I think you need some better slides in your life then.
Yeah.
You need some better slide manufacturers down here in Florida so you can get some better slides, because I go down slides with my kids and I have a great time.
Got to put some Pine Sol on it. Yeah, the Pine Sol's the secret.
Maybe me and gravity just aren't working together.
God broke your center of gravity. You're no longer allowed to go down slides. Maybe because you're celebrating Halloween.
That could be it. Maybe if I stop celebrating Halloween, I'll go try out some slides. How about that? So as a Memes for Jesus account and Christians Who Curse sometimes, how did we get to memes? Like, how did our comedy culture develop to a point where now memes have they've exploded. They've taken over.
As a culture, I think we've gotten to memes maybe from commercials. This is just me literally just riffing right now. Because most of our adult life, we hate ads, but we love memes. And I think a commercial back in the day was actually kind of fun because they were just like, it was still had a little bit of magic back then, like the new toy from Mattel, whoa, it was like really corny and stupid. But as a kid, I remember thinking, wow, I want to get that Power Ranger because that commercial showed me how cool it was. And it was like only a couple second clip or whatever, a minute clip of some kid playing with Power Rangers. And so I think those really small snapshots of something that reminds me of something, like, I think they're somehow connected with the meme. I don't know the psychology behind it, but my thoughts are that. I mean, there's a bigger psychology behind memes being something that is literally viral, that spreads from human to human. But there's also a deeper meaning, I think, that can be researched as to why we like them so much. Because it's like quick, transactional, makes you laugh, and it reminds you of something that you enjoy, or like you saw before, maybe you don't enjoy, but it ties a joke to that thing that you knew about before. But yeah, so memes are the future, 100%. We were just talking about it. Sony it did a meme for Venom and Carnage. They did a meme for it, like an ad for it, and I was like, this is amazing. Like, memes are the future. You can't deny the power of memes. But what are your thoughts?
I mean, I feel like I'm leeching off the success of people who started memes like Memes for Jesus. Like, I'm so late to the game. Like, my page is only 2 years old, and to me, it's just such a quick and easy way to make people laugh. But you can also, like, have a statement in there. You can start conversations, that sort of a thing. It doesn't just have to be a cheap laugh. There are pages that do that, and good on them. But it's so easy just because of how Instagram is built. I think Instagram is the best platform for it, because you just kind of scroll, and when you see that, you stop and read, and you love getting that, like, good laugh that makes you feel like you're a part of something, that you get, that, like, it has that picture from that, or that video from, you know, something you watched as a kid, or something you just watched the other day. It just, they only bring positive feelings out of people, unless you get super controversial with them. Yeah, I mean, they're quick and easy, and I feel like I'm not very well, like, schooled in it, but, like, these guys are, like, the gods of,
oh my gosh,
of Christian memes, because you guys started Christian
well,
memes.
listen, yeah, shout out to Michael Schaefer, who is very upset that he can't be here. He's getting married, so he's busy, but
he's at home building Legos. I
Yeah,
saw him last night.
actually, yeah, that was like his coping. He had some strong copium on that Instagram live. He was just like, I'm just gonna play with my Legos, even though I'm writing a Star Wars the ride right now. But, like, yeah, because he's obsessed with Star Wars. I feel so bad. We'll come back here with Mike, but, like, yeah, Michael, he started Memes for Jesus back in 2012, and he is the godfather of Christian memes. Like, there was other pages around, but most of them since then have collapsed, and they're nowhere near the size of Memes for Jesus and what it became and what it is now. So shout out to Mike. You know, he's like a little brother to me, but he's also like a mentor to me, because he's the meme lord of Christianity, I believe.
I think the thing that people also like about memes in general is because they feel so easy. It feels like something anybody can do. Like, anybody can think of an idea of a meme, and that's why there's so many meme pages that pop up and then disappear. People think they can do it, they try, and then they realize, like, oh, it's actually really hard to be consistently funny, to be consistently unique, and to, you know, keep it going for a long time. And I struggle with that all the time. Is there are days where I'll look and I just can't think of a thing, and it just, you feel so dry. But I think when you look at it, you're like, oh, that's really funny. Like, I'll bet I could come up with one. I feel like most people have that thought, and most people have come up with one in their heads. But to actually go with it and build a page and start going with it and actually be consistent is way more difficult than people imagine. And, you know, Matt and I are in kind of a group chat with a lot of big meme pages, ones that are way bigger than we are. And it's so crazy to see, like, they struggle too. Like, they have days where they're like, man, I'm just not feeling creative. I'm not feeling, but they've been able to build it, and the joy that it brings people, and the people who message and say, like, man, like, I was having such a rough day, this turned it around. Like, that's a powerful thing to hear.
Yeah, I shout out to the Christian meme Illuminati.
Oh, we'll get to the Illuminati for sure.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so I want to go back to what you said of, like, everyone does probably think, I can make one, but it's the idea of being able to make one every day, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of like what you have to...
You guys do
four.
three or four a day.
Or 4 every day.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that, but I also, first of all, want to have one of you guys maybe just give, like, a brief, quick definition of what is a meme, because I'm sure that there are some listeners that are probably hearing this meme, and they're like, what are they talking about?
The term meme was first originated. Well, I mean, I say it in Richard Dawkins' voice because he's the one who coined the term meme, which is a social unit that spreads from one community to another. It's basically a virus. So, like, Furbies were a meme back in the 90s.
Oh, gosh. Wait, you guys are Furbies for Jesus?
Hi.
This is getting real weird.
I forget what they would say, but yeah, no, like, anything that just is
Play
like,
with me.
yeah, or like, you know, Tickle Me Elmo too, like, you know, that was technically a meme, because it just spread and it just, like, caught on like wildfire, you know, like, or they say hotcakes, like, you know, something sells like hotcakes. That's basically a meme, something that gets distributed and spreads quickly. So, but meme, I guess, as it applies to an image, that's something that's more well known on the internet because it's something that just it's just on the internet. That's what you see on the internet is a meme. And I like to think of it personally as when you're hanging out with some friends and then a situation comes up and it reminds you of that one quote from Dumb and Dumber, and you're like, he must work out, and you just like drop one of those quotes. That's a meme because it's like you see an image that recalls you to a place that you can connect with, and then like there's just certain phrases that everybody know. Like you knew that phrase, right?
Oh, yeah.
You know exactly the scene it's from.
Yeah.
And so it's something that connects moments, culture, and all these other things. I don't know that that's the closest to the scientific definition that I'm aware of. But do you want to take a shot at?
I also think it's interesting just how in pop culture memes are, because I feel like every friend group has that picture in somebody's phone of that one friend that looks really weird, and like, this could be a meme. This could be the next thing that blows up. And I think there's that viral element to it that it takes random people and these just weird photos of them and blows them up into something that they never imagined. So I think there's something familiar and fun about it because like it could happen to me, it could happen to my friends, and everybody loves putting their spin on something. So when an image goes viral or, there's a weird type of way of editing an image, everybody loves to have their say. And that's why it's so fun. So to be like, like Memes for Jesus, all the other Christian meme pages, there are tastemakers in there who take those viral moments, put the Christian twist on it, and do it in such an incredible way that it can bring people to Christ. It's so cool.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
So is it as simple as taking this popular image, like a picture of something, and then playing the game, caption this, and throwing in hilarious captions? Or like, what is the art of creating a killer meme? Is there an art to it?
Some people, like our buddy Epic Christian Memes, shout out Epic Christian Memes, go follow him. He's amazing. Like we talk about him all the time. He's just like, he just has the brain for it. Like if you're able to throw a quote that matches an image, you're a meme lord. And that is a skill that is so hard to like, it sounds easy, but it's so difficult to match something like a phrase with an image so perfectly that it resonates with someone on a deep level where many people understand it. Like I fall into the trap where I like to do really obscure inside jokes and do weird stuff, and only like a couple thousand people are gonna get it out of like millions. I love that, but like there is no real algorithm that I'm aware of that you can just say, if you do this and this, then you'll get a viral meme. Like if you put make a meme, it might say something and might have an image to it or a video to it that might apply, but like the type of humor that is accepted widely is where that's the hard part, because like everybody has different styles of humor. To get a meme that everybody likes is hard. Like I think it's the same thing like a comedian. He has to find something that is acceptable and palatable widely to his audience. Where there's some comedians, speaking of Dave Chappelle, he doesn't give a crap about what he says. But there's actually a lot of people that want that now, and they find that authenticity and they appreciate his humor because of that. I love Dave Chappelle. I mean, I don't agree with everything he says. There's a lot I do, but it's like he has that mind. He's a comedic genius where he's able to literally say anything and it still be mostly acceptable by everyone. I say mostly because right now he's in hot water, but anyways.
You love Dave Chappelle, but not Halloween. I will remember that. I will remember that.
See, the interesting thing and really difficult thing about running a page that produces memes is to say something that hasn't already been said.
Yeah.
And like the one joke that you'll never see me do on my page because it's been done a million times is the carrying chairs joke.
By the way, Michael Schaefer created that joke.
He did. And
what joke are we talking about?
So there's a whole thing because in the youth group experience or like the church experience, there's a whole thing with like setting up chairs and putting away chairs, and teenagers would want to do it quickly. I had this experience in my youth group too. So you'd pick up as many chairs as you could to walk them back to the chair stand or walk them back to where you put away the chairs. And Michael made the joke on Memes for Jesus about like,
how it impresses girls. The more chairs a youth group guy can carry, the more impressive it is for the youth group girls.
Truth.
To me, that's just one joke that everybody's made by this point.
Yeah.
So it's hard to find that joke that thought that everybody has that hasn't been said already. And it's a really difficult thing to find because nobody goes to a comedian because they say the same joke you've heard 100 times. They go there because they're going to say something new. They're going to say something surprising. And that's what you have to find to be successful on any sort of humor-based page. You can't do the same thing everybody else is doing. I've had a lot of pages, I'm sure you get it too. A lot of pages, like they start up, they get 5 followers. They're like, what do I have to do to be successful? And I'm like, stop being everybody else. Everybody can make memes. Anybody can do it. A 5-year-old could make a meme. But to make ones that are unique and different that make people want to stick with you and keep coming back to your page is very, very, very difficult.
Okay, now we're about to switch gears because I've got to do a costume change. So if you're watching this right now, you're about to see some magic happen because now I am Burt Macklin, and just like that, I am now Owen Grady from Jurassic World. Isn't that camera magic, ladies and gentlemen?
Amazing.
I've even brought Blue's sister here, Green, and she's here to show off the training skills. I've taught her how to walk. Okay, get back here, Green. You're getting a little too far.
Please explain why you have this.
Well, okay, she doesn't even know how to stop. Like I said, still training. I figured if we're going to do the Halloween episode, my Halloween costume is Chris Pratt. However, I'm just going to go through the saga of Chris Pratt.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Amazing.
So we started Burt Macklin. Now I've went Owen Grady, but I'm still Chris Pratt. Anyways, so we're talking about memes. I am curious for you guys, because you said you guys are doing multiple memes a day. So are you guys putting out your own content every single time, or is there some sharing or borrowing from other memers? What does an average day for meme account guys look like?
Basically, the 80% of our memes are original content. It's stuff that Mike and I create, and we fight about and deliberate over very, very tirelessly every day. And Christian and Cursive, Mike over here was saying how he kind of just is from thought to post, which is how some pages do it, where Mike and I, we have a system that if we both like it, then it'll most likely do good. But most of the time it's he likes something more or I'll like something more. Mostly if it's something that we make ourselves, that's just how it works. But 80% of it is ours. Then there's a little bit of it that's stuff that we share from our friends. That will hey, go follow our buddy Shama, go follow Epic, go follow Christians Who Curse Sometimes, and stuff like that. And then there's submissions. We have a Facebook group that's a community. It's called Memes for Jesus Posting. Because on Facebook, there's a lot of posting groups, and I won't say what the actual term is, but basically they, we have members in the group that will submit memes, and that will be on the feed. But then some memes just stand out like way more than others, and we're hey, we're sharing this to the official page, and that's how that works. But yeah, that's basically our system right now. It's and then sometimes we do some ads here and there, and people complain about that. But you know what? There are memes as well. We make our ads as memes, so cry about it.
And you do ads, I'm guessing, just because you got to make some money at some point, right? You can't just be doing this for free and hope that manna comes from the sky.
I mean, that would also be cool, but yeah, I mean, I think that God can also use ads to provide for us as well, and most of the ads that we share, we feel are helpful to our audience. We don't feel like it's just something that it's hey, buy this dog toothbrush, buy this plunger for your toilet, it's gonna be great. We're very selective, because every day when your page that has a good number, you'll get people DMing you and be like, hey, we have this new ring toss game that we think is going to sell really great with your audience. It's I don't think so. We have, I mean, I'm sure Christians like to play ring toss, but not when they have like expletive words written on them. You know what I mean? Just really weird products.
Yeah, I mean, your ads all feel on brand. It doesn't feel like when I'm going through your page, scrolling, that I see something and it's just blatantly like, oh, that is like, this is obviously them getting paid to do something that they don't even care about and that's not on brand. So you guys were talking earlier about the meme Illuminati. Is that the number one factor for you guys having your audiences grow as quickly as they have? Is that the only factor, or is it just one of the many factors that have helped you guys in growing your audiences?
So,
I mean, you guys, how long have you guys been doing this?
So Mike started the page in 2012.
Okay.
I came on like about 4 years ago, and the page was already big on Facebook. Like I said, Mike founded Christian Memes.
So it was the first one. That helps.
Basically one of the first ones out there. So it was already a big page. And then before the Illuminati was constructed, there was other big pages that were around that, you know, we all were just like, hey, well, I shouldn't say we all. There was a page called Petty Christian Memes. Shout out Petty Christian Memes. He started the meme Illuminati, and they just started adding big pages. And then like we started adding other pages that we really liked. And it became this big group chat on Instagram that we all talk about Christian memes and we all share different thoughts. And it's like a big old family. And Christians of Christ sometimes came in, last year?
Are you going to say that I'm in it? I will neither confirm nor deny the existence of a Christian Illuminati.
I'm loose with it. I'm bad with secrets, so y'all are going to know.
Yeah. No, it's a really cool thing. And it's funny because like I made my page totally on a whim. It was just like I had no dreams that would ever become anything. I told my wife about it. It was just like a funny joke for us. And there was actually a time I had run it for a couple months, and then I ended up getting laid off from my job, and I just like let it sit there. I was like, it's just a thing I tried that was fun for a little bit. And then I would just post whenever I felt like it. If I found something that fit, I would post. And eventually I started having conversations with some bigger pages, and it was Petty Christian Memes who I would talk with kind of casually, just like getting to know him a little bit. And I made a joke to him saying that I said, man, it just seems like you guys all know each other. Are you guys all family or something? And he said something about like, well, this page is my brother, this page is my nephew. And I was like shook. And I was like, wait a minute, do you guys all like have some big group chat? I'm sure I made some joke like that. And he goes like, funny you should mention. And then it went radio silent for a little while. And then before I knew it, next day, I think I got an official invite to be a part of it. And I was a smaller page at the time, probably 4,000 or 5,000 followers. And I got this weird invite that said, you come in, and they told me the whole initiation process, which I don't know that I can talk about.
No, that we can't talk about.
That we can't talk about. But there is a weird like initiation process that I did, and it was super fun. And, you know, these guys that I didn't know a single person in that group. They were all strangers to me. But the cool thing about it is we've got all sorts of different beliefs, denominations, upbringings, all sorts of different things. Because we do what we do, we have all these cool discussions about certain topics, about things in Christian culture that a lot of times we don't agree on. But the beautiful thing is we all express our beliefs, we talk to each other, but we all have a deep respect for each other, which is a really cool thing. Because sometimes two people will just go at it, and they'll kind of be like on different sides of a debate, and you know that they're doing it with a respect for each other. And I think that's something that, you know, relates back to being married too, is, you know, a lot of times you have arguments, but arguing can go two different ways depending on how you respect each other. If you have a deep respect for your spouse or for your friend, you can fight in a really great way where you're not doubting if that person's going to hate you, if they're going to go tell somebody else what you said, you know, all these things that we overthink. If you have that deep respect, all of a sudden the argument becomes more beneficial and healthy. And I think that's what we have in this group. Like Matt and I have even talked on this trip, like we don't see eye to eye on a lot of stuff, but I don't see him any differently. I think it's cool. I want to learn from him. And I think when you take more of that into your life, it's really cool. And the Illuminati is like the perfect example of that, where I don't think there's two people in that room that couldn't like go out to dinner and you know have a good dinner together and have like deep discussions. It's a really, really cool thing.
Now, you said something about an initiation process, because
He's in like the high council of the Illuminati, so I don't know if I can talk about it, but
I'm thinking like as you were talking about it, I was like, this kind of sounds like very frat boy kind of thing. I'm like thinking in my head, I wonder if there's some kind of initiation to get into this like secret society. And you confirmed, yes, there is one.
It's nothing it's nothing super weird, but we should say if anybody can figure it out, they got to get some sort of prize because there's something that we all have done publicly.
Yeah. No. Yeah, no, we can't talk about it. But like, yeah, there is something that we all do or have done.
I don't think anyone would be able to figure it out. Do you?
Maybe not. I don't know. There's been people that have figured stuff out that have astonished me. So I don't know.
Okay, so we can't talk about the initiation process. Can we at least talk about how you guys will choose a random character or celebrity or whatever and say, today we are going to all post about, I don't know, Hulk Hogan or a minion from Despicable Me.
I don't do those.
Like,
He does,
like
yeah.
what is happening there? Because I mean, there's so many people out there that are probably thinking, you know, like James was saying the other night, he saw all the memes with Hulk Hogan, and he literally went to Google and typed in
what's going on.
Yeah, Hulk Hogan news. Like, what's happening?
Yeah, that's just something new. I guess we started doing that. You know, it's just something. So we go through phases, and this is just the newest thing that we do, where it's like, hey, let's do this on a certain day, and confuse everyone, and that's kind of how we do it. Like, it's just a random vote on who's next. Like, we've done
Judge Judy,
Alex Jones, Hulk Hogan. I can't remember anyone else, but yeah, it's just something fun that we do, and who knows what the next phase that we'll go through will be. But that's what we're doing right now, just for the funsies.
That is fun.
Yeah.
What did you guys do when Facebook and Instagram went down?
We were texting each other.
Yeah.
Not many people know who I am. I mean, that's why I'm wearing a mask. Like, even the people in the Illuminati, I think they only know my first name. Outside of that, they don't
I'm one
know
of the
anything
few
else.
people.
So Matt is, I think, the only person who like has my phone number and that sort of thing. So when it went down, he and I were texting back and forth, and we were like, dude, it's been long enough that this is going to be like a pop culture thing. Like, we need to be ready with stuff to go. And of course, he had like 10 ready to go. As I'm like thinking of it, he's already miles ahead of me.
Nice.
So it was just kind of, it's weird because when it's your brand and your job is social media, when it goes down, like, people joke about like being stressed out and all that stuff. But when it's a source of income for you and it's your job and that sort of thing, it actually causes a little bit of stress. Like, on top of doing this, I work with other social media clients where I help them with their pages. So it created a lot of like uneasiness because there was so much fake news going out there about like Facebook's gonna be down for good. And he was one of the people who sent me the fake news. Because remember, you said it and you're like, oops, actually that's fake news.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's weird because I think people learned how often they go to their phone to check it when it's down. You learn how often and how addicted you are, that sort of thing. So it kind of led into a topic on my page where I let people discuss in the stories like how to get off that addiction, that sort of thing. Like, how do you know you love something versus being addicted to it? And we kind of talked about that difference in my Instagram stories. But he had like genius stuff ready to go, and I was just trying to like figure something out. But he's like the mastermind.
Oh man, so like one of the reasons Christians do curse sometimes is in the Illuminati is because he's able to pull value out of just about anything. And like you said, he does these crazy things in his stories where he'll get people to engage on these, seemingly innocuous topics, but we'll get amazing conversations out of them. Where Mike and I, our thing is just like, I made a meme that was when Facebook and Instagram are down and come back from the dead, but you serve a God who did it first. And it's just like Carlton is just like, And but yeah, it's like that's one of the purposes of the Illuminati is just like to really illuminate pages that we feel are highly valuable and are actually Christian pages that are doing something and take their craft seriously. But yeah, that was a fun time.
Matt and I also, every page kind of has its own voice for like the type of humor that they do. Like they're like the kings of like biblical humor, that sort of thing. The way I view what my page more is about Christian life. Like I don't sit and do things where like how David felt when he was thrown in the lion's den. Like that's not what I do. I like making note of what it's like to actually be a Christian in the world. So where their response was hysterical, and they're like, well, we serve a God who raised back from the dead first, which is awesome. I was thinking, like, how would the actual Christian respond? So I did a video of a woman just completely sobbing on a doorway and wrote, when you pray to God to get rid of your distractions and he takes Instagram away. Because it's like, I'm sure people thought like, oh man, like we've all had that thought, like, I wish social media would go away so I could spend more time in my Bible. Then when it actually goes away, you're like, oh shoot, maybe I didn't want that. And all the comments people were writing were like, no, I meant other distractions, Jesus.
Yes.
Please get rid of the other distractions. So we all have kind of a different voice, even within Christianity, that when things like that happen or there's something big in pop culture, we can all have a different, unique voice that's all equally funny in different ways.
Yeah, and you said like when that happened, all of the fake news started coming out, and all the conspiracy theorists like came out from under their rocks, you know, to get everybody thinking up, you know, what is actually happening with Facebook, what's actually happening with Instagram.
Well, you see what's going on here, Debo. We got big tech over here just taking over there's a new thing that's going on. It's a neurotech.
Is this your Alex Jones impression?
There's a neural technology that's being developed by Elon Musk right now. That's going to turn everyone into lizards if you just let it go. Look it up, okay? Look it up.
Well, I'm curious because I don't even know how
You're laughing right now, but it's real. Okay, you think it's funny? You think it's a joke, Joe Rogan? But this is a real thing. You gotta look it up.
Was that Beetlejuice?
You went from Alex Jones to Beetlejuice real quick.
Dude, I'm pretty sure he's the same human, same being.
Well, I'm just curious. Are there conspiracy theories out there that you believe that might be more theory than conspiracy?
Yeah.
Obviously, the social media outage, like, you guys don't believe that there was anything more to that. But what about, I don't know.
Are we talking about like legit conspiracy theories? Because this is one of my favorite things to talk about in the world.
Yeah.
And
I'm talking
at
about
the risk of giving away who I am, because anyone who knows me knows I love conspiracy theories. But let me tell you, I totally subscribe to the conspiracy theory that Beyonce was never pregnant. If you've never looked that one up, look it up, because there's some deep YouTube stuff. There's a video footage of her. Man, this is getting weird. I love it. There's video footage of her when she is like sitting down for an interview and her stomach like folds in on itself, so it looks like a fake belly when she was super pregnant. And then I started putting it together. I was like, dude, what if she was never pregnant? Like, why would she risk, when her body is her brand, why would she risk that? I was like, she's probably got a surrogate but wants to look like it was her. So, see, I love going deep in that weird stuff. Like the Avril Lavigne one is gold too, that she died in like 2002 and that she was replaced with like a body double named Melissa. This is like the craziest stuff. The other big one that I go nuts on is that Michael Jackson is Diana Ross's son. And if you've ever, you will go down the deepest rabbit hole ever when you look that up, because there's a whole conspiracy that she was super young, got pregnant, and then gave the baby to the Jackson family, and they raised him up. And she's said in interviews she's referred to him as her son, and then like covered her mouth. Like there's things like that. And she always went to a lot of his stuff when he was a kid. There's all this weird stuff out there. But see, you got me going. I love conspiracy theories, but not the serious ones. I don't like talking about the serious ones. I like talking about the pop culture, like weird ones, like that Katy Perry with Jean Benet. That's the other one that's just so ridiculous. I don't think I actually believe any of them, but they're fun to read about.
Oh my God.
So what you're saying is you don't believe in any conspiracy theories.
No, but I love talking about them. No, because the thing that messed with my mind is somebody told me, they said when you talk about the conspiracy theories, the ones that are really wacko and the ones that are like political and all that, like some of them are probably true. We just don't know which ones. And that like messed with my mind, because it's likely true. I'm sure there are conspiracy theories out there that will end up being true someday or will have some sort of truth to them, but we just don't know which ones they are. That's why I think it's so fascinating.
So this triggers me, just the talk of conspiracy theories, because I grew up charismatic Pentecostal, Spanish charismatic Pentecostal, which is a whole another dimension of craziness. And so, like, I would go to guys like, I don't know if anyone knows Kent Hovind. He's like a conspiracy theory mastermind, where he had me believing at 12 years old that the stickers behind the stop signs and street signs and stuff like that were directions to the closest military base in case of alien invasion. I believe that. So whenever there's any like conspiracy theory, like I had to delete my brain, that area of my brain, because I believed so much weird stuff.
Wow.
Yep. And you know, now I'm like a total Frozen chosen now, and like so that part of my brain is like very repressed and weird. But like, yeah, one of the I'm trying to think of a conspiracy theory that I might believe, but I can't. I just can't access those data banks right now.
Well, I mean, for me, like, I guess this was maybe last year at some point when the Wayfair conspiracy theory came out.
My wife was so deep into that. She was reading all the articles. That was so weird.
What is that?
Yeah, I mean, they were selling cabinets or like items from their website way overpriced
with really bizarre names.
with the names that matched up to missing kids. So they were thinking, okay, why is anybody paying $10,000 for this cabinet that's also $500 somewhere else on your website?
Like it would be named like the Ashley or something like that, or like it would have a weird name to
The
it.
Mike,
Yeah.
the Matt. But it wasn't simple names. It was usually like a unique name, and then it would be a child that was missing somewhere. And then if you, I guess, followed the tracking number from the item and you put it into this website, it would lead you to that child missing, like their page.
It was so weird.
So yeah, and I mean,
It ended up not being true though. I think like Wayfair came forward, and then all of a sudden all those things were gone. Like it was just very weird.
sure. I mean, if Young Married Christian was doing something illegal and the press came after us for it, I would obviously say we're not doing that. So, I mean, I'm sure that you're not going to have anyone from Wayfair saying, all right, guys, that's what we were doing. Sorry. So it is interesting because, like you said, what is true, what is not true. And for you guys being on platforms where you don't control, like, who is, like, or somebody else is in control of if your accounts are allowed to see another day, is there... like, what are your guys' thoughts as far as just social media allowing what content can be seen, banning accounts, and deciding what is fact and fiction?
That's a really good question. And unfortunately, it's a really, really difficult one to answer because, like, people love to get angry at the censorship. There 100% needs to be censorship on social media. Facebook has to keep off pornography. They have to keep off violence. Like, I don't want to see that when I log in. And if someone gets hacked and someone's posting that stuff, I want it to be taken down before it can even get to my eyes. Like, people don't realize how deep social media goes into that, into their studies. Like, the one thing that I know is the first big pop culture instance of Facebook censoring was, you probably remember this, it was in the late 2000s when it was still fairly new, was women were protesting because Facebook was blocking nipples in breastfeeding photos. They said you couldn't post photos of breastfeeding, and these women were like, why not? It's a natural, beautiful thing. So Facebook had to say, well, they said like, well, we don't allow genitalia or breasts. And they're like, well, maybe we can allow them in some ways, and maybe that's fine. And they said like, as long as the baby is latched, then you can post the photo. And then women would be posting photos where like the baby was clearly just feeding but wasn't latched. And all these intricacies, I do not envy the people who do that job. Like, I've had people get so frustrated when they have posts taken down for what seems like an unfair reason. Like, I've had posts taken down because I'm doing a thing where like, I want to laugh with Christians. Like, I posted a video of a really, really bad parody that some Christians made that it was just kind of super cringe. And I posted, the caption I wrote was like, no, Christians aren't that weird. And then I wrote like, also Christians. And then I put like this really weird parody. It was taken down 5 minutes later for hate speech. And
Wow.
I looked at it and I was like, I could see how someone might think that because it could seem anti-Christian. But because they don't know my page, they don't know what I'm doing, that sort of thing, it makes it more complicated. So I've had a bunch of posts taken down for hate speech or whatever. I appeal them. Sometimes they get put back up. Sometimes they don't. But there's no way for a tech giant to tell intent behind posting something. And that's where it gets tricky. So you can't be hurt or offended when something gets taken down. It just means they're being extra careful, and they want to make sure if you appeal it and then they still say no, that's a totally different thing. Because from what I understand, that means a human being has looked at it and taken a look at your page and then chosen if it should stay up or not. Yeah. I don't know how often that happens to you guys. It's very rare. It's like once every other month or something.
Yeah, we had one. So there's a meme template where there's a guy's, his face is just saying yes. It's called Yes Chad. He's like, yes. Basically agreeing with something that normally would be controversial. Like, for instance, you know, oh, you mean you believe everything in the Bible? Like the guy on the left panel will be some screaming, you know, screeching guy crying, like, you mean you believe everything the Bible says without question? And the guy's just like, yes. And then, so we did a meme that was like that, where the guy's like just saying, Christians are just sheep. And the guy's like, yes. You know, because we're literally the sheep in need of a shepherd. And so the Facebook algorithm took that down and said it was hate speech against Christians, because they couldn't see the intent. They couldn't see that it was satire. And unless you're the freaking Babylon Bee with buku bucks to just say, you know, fend off the Facebook algorithm somehow, pages like us are just going to get violations for dumb stuff like that. But I agree with Michael here that, you know, there should be censorship. Some of y'all have never seen Univision, and it shows. Like, they have dead bodies on the news in Venezuela, like mutilated bodies. They'll just show it to you with no warning whatsoever. They got, you know, overseas, they'll just show that stuff to you, because it's like, well, we feel that, I don't know what the reasoning is, but, you know, we are very protected, and it's a good thing. I don't want to see that. I don't want my kids seeing that. But, you know, I know there's levels of censorship that people would argue with. There are some gray areas, and I believe in freedom of speech, but I also believe that a private company has the rights to its own property, and it's, you know, what they allow customers to do on their product. So it's like, you know, in the same way, I believe a baker should be able to turn away business. I think that Facebook, Instagram reserve the right to say you can post this and you can't post that. It does get a little tricky if you go down the conspiracy theory hole, talking about, well, you know, big tech owns this. Like, I think, you know, guys like Alex Jones might have, and we're gonna get demonetized for this, I apologize. If you put this on YouTube, you're not making any money off of it. Not anymore. But like, yeah, like Alex Jones has a point when it comes to big tech. That is a thing. Like, there are social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram, and well, Facebook, I guess, incorporated, that is so powerful that there's billions of people on there. You know, most of the world is on this platform, and you know, there's really not much competition, or there's really no other platform where you can say you can meet just about anybody in the world on there. And I mean, it's a good thing, but it's also a scary thing, the amount of power they have. It's like, what do you do with that? Yeah, what do you think?
And people don't like to admit this, but or like to believe this, but when you upload a photo to most of the large social media platforms, when you upload it, they scan that photo to like make sure, like they look at the metadata, where it was taken, that sort of thing, but they also look for anything in the image that might be, like, they have scanners for like genitalia, stuff like that. Like, that's why if you ever try to upload something graphic to Instagram, it won't go up, and if it does, it won't be up for very long. But the one platform that's done a fantastic job at that is TikTok. I have never seen anything graphic on TikTok, like borderline stuff with like dancing, stuff like that, yes. But what they do is when you upload a video, if there's nothing weird about it, whatever, it'll go up right away. But if you upload anything that has any sort of word, phrase, image, anything that could vaguely be seen as anything negative, it actually won't go live right away, and it'll say your video is under review, check back for when it's posted. So they don't even let it go up until a human being has seen it. Most videos are innocent and they go up right away, but I've had stuff for clients that I've had, and for my own page, where I'll put it up and it just has one word that is innocent but could be taken certain ways or whatever, and an hour later it'll be up. And I'm so glad that they do that, because TikTok is a platform where you swipe and you see people you don't follow. So you don't know, it's built on following strangers and seeing their humor, their point of views, that sort of thing. So to do that and to do as good of a job as they're doing, me just seeing random stuff and never seeing anything too graphic, like hats off to them. It's amazing whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, and what I like to do is put myself in the company's shoes. It's like, how would you handle millions of people uploading material to your platform? Like, I know Twitch has some issues too with like, some people feel like they're super strict. I know TikTok feel like, a lot of people feel that TikTok is super strict as well, which I think they can be in a lot of instances. But like, how do you juggle controlling an audience of people that's posting on your platform that are always towing the line, especially sexual stuff? Like on Twitch, like there's this whole thing where people are just like, girls mostly, my apologies, but they're trying to thirst trap. And they're trying to do as best as they can to get that money, toe the line between Twitch and OnlyFans, so that where they're getting, the Twitch audience, but not being registered, within the full OnlyFans, sexual exploitation area. And then TikTok, I think they're very, very like strict, because they'll take stuff down even if it resembles violence or anything like that. So I don't know, like, how would you do it? That's what I like to say. Like, well, how would you do it? How would you run a multi-billion-dollar company that has millions of people uploading? How would you do it?
It's also the reason a lot of people aren't staying on Twitter. It's the reason why Twitter is a very unique audience, because they allow pornography on Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
And they allow violence on Twitter. And that shows, like, because that one isn't seen as the same, like, monster that Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok are right now, like, it's big, it's huge, but it's almost on its own little island compared to everybody else, because it has its crowd there that likes it, that understands it. But moms aren't going to go there. Like, people who want to get away from that stuff, because you can't control what people retweet. And if they've made the decision as a business not to take down pornography or violence. They leave it up, and that's their right to do. But I don't like going on there for those reasons. I have one. I look at it once in a while if something's going on Twitter, but I never hang out there. And I think that's what I hear from a lot of other people too.
And I think that just the way that I relate to all of this conversation is that, working for Disney for 5 years, you see somebody walking around with, like, literally, I saw somebody with, like, the Mickey hand with the shocker, and that guy was immediately told to flip his shirt out, or like Disney literally, would go buy him a new shirt to wear, because you can't wear certain things around a family-friendly park, whereas maybe your local mom and pop amusement park or your local fair, they're not going to have that strict of security, and people can walk around with all kinds of things on their shirts. But it's like, the bigger that you get, probably the more censorship you have to be able to keep your brand. And so very interesting that you guys put it into perspective. It's just sometimes weird when you think about, like, the little people out there that might have, a few dozen followers, and they're still getting banned and their accounts taken down because of, something they post. And it's like, is that really having that big of an effect? But when you think about having censorship and keeping your platform consistent, it makes sense. And I think that's why with Young Married Christian, we've put our content on so many different platforms, and trying to hope, like, okay, if one goes down, we still got these other ones. I know, Matt, you guys have, both of you guys have podcasts, but Matt, your podcast, Memes for Jesus, it was going steady, strong, and then all of a sudden that last episode kind of left us on a cliffhanger, and it's been a while. What's going on with Memes for Jesus podcast?
So I'm just going to say this, okay? We are gearing up to do something really different and really new, and I can't say when it's going to happen, but it's going to happen soon. And if you see us make, crazy big changes, you heard it here first. A Young Married Christian podcast.
Hey.
Okay. But yeah, that's what we're gearing up to do, something really big and really, really different. We want to take a really nice, new, fresh direction on a lot of things. So and I'm really, really excited about it. But there's not much I can say about it, unfortunately.
So many secrets that can't be told just yet,
Yeah.
but I'm sure that they will come out eventually. We're super excited.
The
I know-
Illuminati knows. They know.
So we just got to figure out what the initiation process is and get into the Illuminati
Thing is,
somehow.
much like our salvation,
No.
we are elected. There are those that are elected
Wow.
unto the Illuminati.
Wow. Okay. Predestination. Here we go. So, Mike, I know for you, you do something very interesting with your blogs because a lot of times when you go onto a Christian blog site, you're not anticipating to see a Venom 2 movie review. And then one of the other posts that really intrigued me, and I was telling you the other night, it was the reason why I started watching Squid Game, was that you literally went full on in to making a post about Squid Game, and you and I were kind of discussing like why you do what you do, like why you cover these, like, you know, I'm going to say non-Christian, you know, pieces of media. Can you talk into that and like the demonization of those?
Yeah, you know, it all started from me wanting to create what I feel like I didn't have. And I feel like Christian movie reviewers, when they talk about movies that aren't Christian, they just want to give it like a rating for like how bad it is to watch, like how much sex is in it, how much violence is in it. And that's what most Christian movie reviewers are doing right now, or they won't even touch it with a 10-foot pole because everybody knows there's going to be violence or a lot of sex in it. And they never talk about the quality. They never talk about how good a movie is. And the thing that changed my perspective a long time ago was when you realize that if someone were to make a movie about the Bible, start to finish, that movie would be rated X. It would be rated NC-17. To be able to accurately show the cultural violence, the cultural sexuality and stuff that happened in the Bible, you could not put that movie out safely for families to view. Because there's a lot of bad people in the Bible. And in order to show good prevailing, there has to be bad. And Christians are so bad at when something comes out in pop culture or anything happens in society, they want to demonize it so quickly. Like I've seen so many posts about Squid Game where they talk about how, oh, it's demonic because the front man has this mask and blah, 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 and it looks like a demon mask, so it must be demonic, so I'm not watching that whole thing.
100%, right?
And I haven't met many Christians in my life who look at things that are out there and say, I want to find biblical truths that are out there in these movies. And if we start doing that, there are beautiful conversations we can have about faith, about scripture, started by things in pop culture. Like I talked about that, you know, that show Squid Game in the article you read. I watched it and I was like, man, there are beautiful stories of forgiveness in there. There are beautiful stories of redemption. Like there are stories in there that you can relate back to the Bible and have those discussions about. It's like if we block so many things from Christians and from our kids, then we can't safely prepare ourselves to live in this world. Like there are opportunities, like when an awkward scene comes up and you're a teenager and you see an awkward scene with your parents and you're like, ugh, this is weird. Like, you know, that nightmare that every teen has when you're watching a movie with your parents and a sex scene comes up. You're like, oh no, they're gonna say something. Like you should be able to have healthy conversations about that, where if there is, you know, premarital sex happening in a movie, where your parents can say to their kids, be like, what do you think about that? Do you think that that's something that people should strive for? Why do you believe that? Like they can be springboards into beautiful conversations, but because we're so quick to demonize, we're stuck with just awful Christian media that doesn't push the limit, that's just safe and easy and is just like a Bible verse in a movie. And there's nothing edgy about it and no conversations in there that we haven't already had 100 times. And I think that until Christians start pushing the limit, we're just going to keep getting more mediocre Christian movies and television shows. I can only name 2 Christian movies or television shows that I think are actually high quality and good, and that's VeggieTales and The Chosen. And I haven't even seen The Chosen, but from what I've
No Prince of Egypt?
Okay, wait, I'll give you that one. There's 3.
Okay.
There's 3.
Nice.
Prince of Egypt.
Yeah.
But also those 3 things, The Chosen takes some risks in how it tells its stories, from what I understand. Like VeggieTales took some risks in how it told its Bible stories. It put like little twists on it that probably would have upset a lot of boomer Christians had it been released today. And like they take some liberties in telling those Bible stories. So it's really fascinating. So when you think about the movie industry, apart from Christianity, the things that are successful in the movie industry are the big movies that take big risks. They put a lot of money into something, they take a big risk, and you get these big victories and these big failures. The things that don't do well are the completely mediocre, you know what's going to happen, boring movies. And unfortunately, in the Christian world, it's exactly the opposite. The movies in Christian culture that sell today, that people watch, are the most mediocre, bland pieces of junk I have ever seen. Like, I hope no one from Pure Flix is listening. Most of it is complete garbage. On that, it is just complete emotional drivel.
They're actually our entire audience at this point.
I'm sure they are. And but that's saying, I would say this to the PureFlix CEO. Like, we need to challenge it a little bit. But the problem
He
is,
says behind a mask.
Yeah. Show your face.
Okay, I get it. But until when you put out a Christian movie, why would I want to make it good? Because I know Christians are going to buy it and watch it, even if it's mediocre.
Dang.
So why should I take a risk? And that's why we're stuck with so much like bland milquetoast Christian media, because it's the same thing with Christian radio. Like, you don't hear Christian radio taking risks in any way. And that's why, I mean, the reason we have jokes out there is because there's a kernel of truth. People joke about Christian radio only playing the same 10 songs and having boring, bland DJs, because a lot of that's true. And until Christians start saying, you know what, we want to see some good stuff, we're not going to support God's Not Dead 17. We're going to wait until something good comes out. And until we do that, we're just going to keep getting mediocre content.
God's Not Dead is trying to catch up with Now That's What I Call Music.
Exactly.
Okay? they're trying. So do you think that, because now you've got my brain thinking, when you say that they don't make quality content because they know that who they're making the movie for is just going to go out and see it, is it similar to like like back in the day, WWF and WCW? They made some of the best content in the 90s because they had a strong competitor that you're either watching this or you're watching this. They're at the same time, same night of the week. Do you think that if there's more Christian studios out there putting out content, that at some point it's going to get to a point where as a Christian you can't watch everything, so you got to pick and choose? Or do you think that that's never going to happen, that we just actually need to realize, hey, God wants us to give our best and have quality content?
No, I think absolutely, because like The Chosen is kind of the first show that's challenging that in Christianity, because that's why I say, like, if you ask somebody to talk about like the Christian movies, like the last Christian movie they've seen, they just say it was good, it was okay, I liked it. It's usually positive words, but aren't like, oh my gosh, that movie like changed me. I had a great conversation with my spouse about it. Man, I just can't stop thinking about it. I had to watch it 10 more times. Like, I can't remember the last time anyone's ever said that about a Christian movie. The Chosen is starting to do that. It's groundbreaking. Like I said, I feel bad because I haven't seen it yet. But from what I understand, it's trailblazing into this territory where they are taking risks. They are taking liberties with the stories. They are starting conversations, and people are getting excited about it. So I think that kind of spark can start something, but they've got to keep doing it and keep consistent, because I don't want it to be a flash in the pan and then we just go right back to making mediocre romantic comedies where, you know, they kiss at the end and everybody's happy and they hold hands in a church pew worshiping together. So I want things that actually challenge what it's like to be a Christian, that actually shows Christian struggles. It's the same thing with Christian radio. Like, they joke about their marriages a little bit, but I don't know that I've ever heard a Christian DJ talk about, like, yeah, we actually had a really hard time. My wife and I went to marriage therapy. Like, I don't know the last time I've ever heard that kind of real conversation in Christian radio.
Well, if they do, it's always in vague imagery, like, you know, guys, sometimes we go through the storms.
Yeah.
I personally haven't.
There's just times that, or, you know, the waters start rising, guys. You know what I'm talking about? Like, no real, like pinpoint accuracy. And if they're referring to an actual trial, like with specificity, it's like, guys, just keep me in prayer. My dog, he's not digesting food like he used to, and I gotta take him to the vet, and it's been on my heart. Just to pray for, like
that's a Christian movie right there.
Yeah.
Like what you just described. Like they would be like, oh, it's a great Christian movie. A guy has a sick dog, and they pray over the dog, bring him to the vet, and he's better.
Yeah.
And yay, praise God at the end. Like that would make money in Christian media, and that makes me so mad.
He's like, boom, boom,
He's
boom,
banging the table like
Yeah.
a madman.
He's very passionate.
He's a psychopath over here.
Okay, I'm curious about this. You talk about having an authenticity that is just more real than what we're used to. But would you be okay with being at a church and the worship leader, before they start, saying, hey guys, just wanted to let you know I'm here to lead you in worship, but I'm struggling with if I even believe in God right now?
I think that's. I think there's an interesting juxtaposition of that. I think if you are in leadership of a church, there is nothing wrong with taking a break to figure things out and, admitting like, hey, I'm struggling right now. The church was meant to be a community that helps each other in those struggles. So I think there needs to be that authenticity where we feel comfortable telling our church what we're struggling with. But in running my page, like one thing that I do fairly frequently is I have people share their secrets. And I just say like, what have you not told anybody? And then I just post them out there for people to see. And every time I do it, it completely breaks my heart because it shows that we are not at a place as Christians yet where we have that community. Because I hope one day I post that question and I don't get a single submission, because everybody's in beautiful communities where they can say, hey, I'm really struggling. I messed up. I don't know what to think about God anymore, and I want to find answers. I think there's a real rawness in that people will come around them and help them, because I always think if someone told me that, I would want to like take them under my arm, hear their story, help them figure it out. I don't think I have all the answers, but I want to help them find somebody who does. Whether that's therapy, whether that's a pastor, a mentor, a friend, a family member, I want to get them connected if they're hurting. And the fact that there are people in church who are scared to talk about what they're struggling with because they've never heard anybody else talk about that, that's where we just get in a cycle of loneliness. Because when you see the Christian movies, Christian radio, all that stuff, you don't hear those issues talked about. Thus, people think I'm alone and nobody will understand what I'm going through, so I'm never going to tell anybody until they either get caught or have some sort of episode or something like that, until it gets to a point where it's really bad. And I wish there was a point where someone could say like, hey, I'm having really bad anxiety coming to church this morning. Will you bring me and like walk out with me if I can't handle it? Like, how amazing would that be if we could have that conversation openly?
Yeah.
And that's where I think Christian media needs to set the example by starting those conversations, showing these people they aren't alone, showing these people that there is hope and they can get help. We just need to start building those communities, and the media can be the trendsetters for that.
Man, yeah, I love it. It's like a church 2.0, or like what you want the church to
No,
look
it should be
like.
church 1.0. Like it shouldn't be church 2.0. This is how it's supposed to be from the beginning.
I want to brag.
Right.
I want to brag on my church a little bit, because I feel like my church does a really good job of this from the leadership. They are very transparent. Well, I shouldn't say very, but they will allude to the fact that they have deep struggles, and they will tell from the pulpit, say, I have these struggles in my life, and these are normal. These are things that we can cast before the Lord, and trust Him even through the midst of them, even if they aren't removed. Where I feel like a lot of churches, through like the ages, have embraced a type of certainty and like almost like an impervious defense or a perfection, where nothing, if you're a man of God, there should be nothing you're struggling with. You should be completely anxiety free. Actually, anxiety is a sin. You know what I mean? And that's what a lot of churches, I believe, at least in the American church that we have grown up in, I've grown up in, I feel like that's a thing where you cannot show vulnerability from the pulpit. You cannot share struggles whatsoever. And as a church congregant, you shouldn't either. And it's any type of weakness that you show within the church, you're not a real Christian, because you should have the joy of the Lord. You should have the strength that, overcomes, or the peace that overcomes understanding. But I don't feel that is biblical. Like, you have the prophet Jeremiah, who was called the weeping prophet. The dude was depressed. The dude was hurting. And, the Lord, I don't think ever delivered him. Samson as well, I don't think the Lord ever delivered him from certain things. He used him, and he delivered him through certain things, but I don't think as Christians we can say, I know with absolute certainty that I will not have any struggles in my life. I think, if anything, that is sinful, because the Bible says that he who says he's without sin is a liar. And I think we lie to each other when we act like there's nothing wrong, there's no issues whatsoever in our homes, there's no struggles. But yeah, I want to shout out my church, Community Evangelical Church, because I feel they do a great job of that, and it's helped really ease me as a former pastor going into ministry again, or into church again, and seeing that it can be done. And so yeah, shout out.
Yeah, and it's good to hear that there's churches out there that are doing it the way that it should be done. One of the things that you talked about, Mike, was when watching films with your kids, that being an opportunity to talk about sex with them. And I'm sure that we're not all out there as parents just trying to watch movies with sexual scenes so that we can have a conversation with our child. But I'm curious, do you think that it is 100% just strictly the parent's job to talk about sex with their kids? Or do you think that the church should also be having those conversations? Or do you think it's not even the parent's job at all, and the church should be handling sex completely? Like, where do you feel like that balance should be?
Well, first of all, I don't purposely show my children sexual content. Let's just get it. Like, there needs to be something between totally keeping your kids in a bubble and like watching whatever they want. Like, there needs to be that healthy kind of middle ground. But I think
you're not turning HBO on late at night and just saying, "Kids, sit down. We've got to have a chat."
I'm saying they need to have a filter. But when kids become teenagers and have an interest about things in pop culture that their friends are doing, they want to watch something, things like that. We need to give them the right tools that if they do stumble across something they probably haven't seen, that they can know how to handle it and know how to have a conversation about it in a healthy way. That's my only thought on that. But when it comes to who should be teaching sex, the thing that I've learned is that it shouldn't be only one. I think parents need to do it. I think the church needs to do it, and I think schools need to do it. And I think all three of those together is a beautiful formula, because parents can teach. Here's what your mother and I believe. Here's what we believe the Bible says. I think the church can give a beautiful talk on the spirituality of sex and the intimacy of sex and what the Bible says about sex, and then the school can teach about the biology of sex. Like, unfortunately, that school part is missing for so many people, and there's a huge movement now against purity culture. I mean, we see it all the time on our page. It's such a huge movement because some people were more on that sheltered side and were only exposed to some extreme biblical viewpoints. I think there are some churches that did a great job with purity culture, but I think a lot of them did an awful job. And they only hear one point of view, and they're told this point of view is the correct one. Don't even research the other point of views. You don't even want to hear what they have to say. Only listen to this one. And when you block people out, and then all of a sudden they go to college, they go out in the world, and they're like, wait. This seems kind of positive what they're saying. How does that make sense that it's negative? And then they throw the baby out with the bathwater, and all of a sudden they start questioning everything. So to have that mix of, your family, what they believe, your church, what they believe, and then biologically in school, like, we should be teaching people what happens with their bodies. There are people who get married who don't know how to have sex. That seems so mind-boggling to say, but on my page, I do a sex Q&A every once in a while with an expert who's a doctor in sex therapy. He's a Christian as well, so he gives beautiful perspectives. And I legitimately get questions from Christians saying, I am going to get married and I don't know how sex works. These are grown adults who don't know. And it's because they were raised in these cultures where it just was never talked about because it's dirty. You should never think about it. You should never talk about it. So there needs to be that middle ground. We should not be only talking about the biological aspects of sex, because there's more to sex than that. We should be including all of it together to make this kind of beautiful, platter of what sex should look like when it's done in a healthy way and spiritual way.
Yeah. Can we just take a quick moment and institute OT law and chop this man's hands off? Because he just keeps banging on the table. Like, what are you? Are you like, you want to know Christians occur sometimes real identity? He's actually Donkey Kong. He just slams.
I talk loud with my hands. Okay?
Hey, it's on.
I got a mask on. I'm trying to be more expressive with my hands.
That's right.
Oh my God.
He's getting ready for Universal's Epic Universe. Okay.
Oh my gosh. But I agree with a lot of what Mike said over here. I think primarily a child's understanding their developmental understanding and view of sexuality comes primarily from the family. There's just documentation to support that. And secondarily through their friends and through school interactions and things like that. I am definitely a supporter of knowledge and exposure to different views, but I believe that within the home it should be established that this is what we believe, this is what I believe scripturally, how we should conduct ourselves sexually. And my son, when he gets older, I'm going to teach him the way I believe I should have been taught. I'm going to to just have a type of fruit of the spirit of self-control. I believe, there's books like Every Man's Struggle, which I believe, that it is definitely more of a man's struggle to have that level of self-control that permits a holy and healthy lifestyle where you commit yourself as a man to save your urges and your desires for your spouse. That's my conviction. Now, what he mentioned, purity culture, is something that you're seeing within a lot of deconstructing Christians. They'll say, well, like for instance, one of our ads we'll do is for a porn blocker. And whenever we'll post it, there'll be somebody in the comments, purity culture, and like what they're saying is that, essentially, you shouldn't be telling me if I should watch porn or not. You shouldn't be.
It's a don't tell. Like churches shouldn't tell people what to do with their bodies.
Yeah, that's essentially. That's like their.
Say.
That's like they're deconstructing so hard that it's like anti-biblical, it's anti-scriptural. Because I think the Bible is extremely clear on how well we should maintain the things that we view. That I will let no impure thing come into my eyes. I think that's pretty clear. Like we shouldn't, and it also, the Bible also references, saving yourself for keeping the marriage bed pure. Where I think there's a lot of deconstructing Christians that are demonizing anything that has to do with maintaining your purity as a Christian and being holy, to the point where it's like, well, I should just be able to do whatever I want. Don't condemn the things that I want to do. I'm figuring out my own body, and they feel like, the anti-Joshua Harris movement, where Joshua Harris was like, I'm not even going to kiss my wife till, it's like, we have to find a balance there. And I think a healthy balance is, telling the kids, look, we need to have self-control, of course, but also, educate yourself in a healthy way. Because some people will say, well, porn is educational. No, it's not. That's like watching Fast and the Furious to educate yourself to be a taxi driver. It's like, it's not how it works. It's not who you are as a person. There should be a healthy emphasis on how to, be a sexual human and a Christian at the same time. Because I think a lot of churches, they've instituted, the purity culture that a lot of people are deconstructing from, to the point where it's like, girls have to wear super long skirts, and they venture more on the legalistic side, where and men need to dress with suit and tie, the collar, shirt, and the ties at all times, because it's modest, because it's this and that. I think that's a bit controlling. I think that's setting a standard that can be unreasonable in certain areas. But yeah, I just think that the title of the book, Every Man's Struggle, I think is the perfect description to how we should handle our sexuality. Because I really truly believe that every person's sexuality is their struggle belongs to themselves. Certain people have different desires. Certain people have different urges that they need the Holy Spirit to tackle them. And I think Jackie Hill Perry conquers this extraordinarily. I know a lot of people find her to be controversial, but she says, God never called us to be straight. He called us to be holy. As a Christian, we should pursue holiness more than anything. He didn't call us to be, something that we identify as, sexuality is an identity now. It's something that makes you as a person. But as a Christian, our identity is found in Christ. We're found in Christ. Everything that we are, it's in Christ. And so we should pursue Christ-like behavior first and foremost, rather than nitpicking, do you wear this? Do you go here? Do you do that? You know, in your relationship, do you go this far? You know, I think every person needs to discover their identity within Christ and then pursue that.
Amen. Yeah.
yeah.
I am about to do an identity change myself. So this will be the last time you see Green. This will be the last time that you see Owen Grady. And just like that, I have now continued to be Chris Pratt, but now as Star-Lord with my friend Groot. Hopefully Groot can stay on my shoulder the entire time. Groot, do you think you can do that? I am Groot. All right. Well, that's good. So we were talking about, for the people that aren't watching this, they're probably just like, what is happening? And I really hope that it makes them go to YouTube and like look at our crazy costumes and everything. And honestly, I just want to get Chris Pratt's attention so that when he comes to Universal for the opening of the Super Nintendo World and the Mario stuff, that he can be there. Because I was waiting for him for Velocicoaster and he never showed up because of COVID, apparently. Anyways,
so I have something to say about Chris Pratt, by the way.
Oh,
I actually he liked one of my comments one time.
No way.
I cried. I screamed.
You've
I
got
cried.
the connection. You got to hook him up.
Oh, I wish, man. So he had like a weird make my Facebook cover photo Photoshop challenge, and I made this crazy, insane thing where it was like Velociraptor, steaks, antlers, guns, like all this crazy stuff that he likes to do, and like all of his characters. It was just a huge hodgepodge of images of stuff that he's been involved with, and I submitted it on the thread, and he liked it, and I was like, oh wait, I want to add some more stuff. I added another one, and he liked that one too. He was like, I like this one, but he didn't choose it. He actually commented and said, I like this one, but.
Wait, was that your justification why you don't have connection with him? Because he didn't choose yours? You're
Yeah.
like, all right, Chris Pratt, you missed out on the opportunity.
Yeah, he didn't choose mine.
Yeah.
But I still have the image of the notification saying Chris Pratt liked your comment, and I was like, ah.
Well, before I did my complete costume change here, we were on the topic of sex and who should be teaching sex to your children. I am going to take this a step further and kind of talk to parents that maybe have teenagers that are, or maybe even older than teenagers that are starting to get into dating apps, and they're online with, you know, kind of seeking after relationships, and maybe they're on Christian dating apps. But I know that I read an article, and it might have actually been yours, Mike, where you were talking about even on Christian dating apps, there are penis pics being sent from guys to girls. So I would like for us to just not only talk to the guys, but or talk to the girls, but kind of talk to both sides of like, okay, guys, why are you doing this? And talking to that, but then also talking to the girls of like, you know, what should a girl do with that?
So I like to, the reason that article came up was I like to do Christian dating horror stories. It's always great. We're weird as Christians. We got to laugh at ourselves a little bit. And I love having people share those like weird stories that they feel like is unique to them, that we all find funny. You know, the God told me I had to date you kind of stuff. So people share these really great things. But the one thing that I thought was so weird was all these women were sending me stories about guys sending them photos of their genitals, and they said, I went to Christian dating apps because I didn't want to have that happen anymore, and it still happened. They don't do it in app, I think, because there's all sorts of filters or whatever for photos, but they told me, they're like, no, they like eventually text it to me or something like that, and they're like, I'm just so bummed, like I thought Christian men were above that. But so I got an idea. I was like, I got to figure out why Christian men are doing this. So I Googled the research that's been done on men who send penis pictures, and I like to run as Richard pictures.
Okay.
That's more like,
Okay.
if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I get you.
So men who send Richard pictures. So
Rich pics.
yes.
but poor in content.
What they found that 50% of men have sent one in their lifetime. And they found that but
so that means I'm
one of
the 50%.
But including married, including married people who've been dated, those sorts of things too. They're saying 50% of men have sent one.
Wow.
And they looked for the commonalities of that 50%, especially the ones who did it while they were like in early stages of dating. And they said the 3 traits that they found from the man who's most likely to send it is narcissistic, young, and has sexist tendencies. And when I read those 3 things, I was like, those are 3 things that Christians also can be too. And in some of those things, it can be worse. And they studied these men about why they were sending it too. And what they found was a lot of men send it as a compliment to the woman, which is mind-blowing to
What
me.
an odd compliment.
Yes,
It's like
they
a backhanded compliment.
Yeah, but they said
But like an
it's a
under the
way that
weight-
their like weird, inappropriate primal brain says like, I'm attracted to you. You're an attractive person. So it was sent for that reason, but also like to get something in return, whether it's a photo or a date or something like, hey, I've just been vulnerable with you. Be it with me. I'm not saying like it's completely wrong.
Yeah, it's like
no matter,
caveman logic.
but I think people need to realize that Christians are not above struggles. Christians are not above doing bad things. Christians are not above being predators. Like people can have Jesus associated with their name and make mistakes, but also be bad people too. And I think when people go onto dating apps, they have this high standard of the men are going to be different, the women are going to be different. But unfortunately, you're going to find a lot of the same issues there because we struggle with a lot of the same things that everybody else does. So until we start bringing attention to that, when you have your expectations in the right place, we need to start calling it out. We need to start doing better, and we need to start preparing people to know, like, hey, this could happen. You're not completely safe. Just because something says Christian on it doesn't mean it's a good thing and doesn't mean that you're going to have a 100% positive experience. It's the image of perfection that Christians put out there that I think kind of handles this, and this is why you see a lot of deconstruction, you see a lot of people running away from faith, is because when the standard is perfection, everybody fails. And when a church, an individual church has a standard of perfection, then when a pastor fails or a prominent member of that community fails, people are like, well, what does this say about everybody else? And everybody's all of a sudden in that same standard. So we have to change that perception to being what the church is actually told to be biblically, which is we're broken people. It's that common phrase I've heard, like a church isn't a museum of perfect people, it's a hospital for the broken. And when we start viewing the church as a hospital for the broken and actually put that image out there into the world, that's when it's going to start becoming a more positive place. But unfortunately, we have that perfection thing right now that if you step away from Christianity and kind of look at it from the outside looking in, that's what we have. And we have to recognize that first and foremost if we're going to get better as Christians and if we're going to evangelize effectively to the world. We have to know how they see us. Because I don't want to go to somebody who has that image of Christians of, oh, you're just going to try to make me perfect, because that's unattainable. It's unattainable for me. It's unattainable for them. So why is that the standard? So when we put that standard on dating apps, on anything with a Christian label, we're doing damage to ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, and for me, like, I have never sent a rich pic, as you call it.
I haven't either.
Me neither. I was gonna say, I just want to get that out there for everyone to know. We are not a part of the other 50%. We're part of the good 50%. Wow. But I'm curious too. Like, yes, that's not something I've done, but and I think that it's bad. But there are things out there that I haven't done that I don't know. Are they bad? Are they good? And I'm going into the topic of sex toys, because in my previous marriage, we didn't use sex toys, and maybe that makes me boring. You guys don't have to talk about whether or not you use them in your own marriages, but it was a question that you posted actually last night about whether or not it's okay to use them as Christians. And it was like so split, and so it makes me believe that there's a lot of people out there that are probably using them and think they're okay. And there's probably people out there that are thinking you're going to hell for even, thinking about using them. So I'm curious if you guys have an actual stance on them, regardless of if you use them or not.
All right. I want to venture into Alex Jones territory here a little bit because
sexy.
Well, this is not going to be sexy at all, because, going back to Elon Musk, he is creating a neural, what is it? I forget what it's called. It's like a neural thing that you put, neural link, that's what it's called, in your head. And they're saying it's like the first step towards, oh man, my brain, I don't know the big words now, but it's basically synthetic humans, where we're taking a step towards uploading consciousness to fake humanity, like fake bodies where, we will no longer be human. We will be, basically robots with human consciousness uploaded into them through data, is essentially where a lot of people say the future may be headed, and depending on what that looks like and how we will be subservient to or integrated into machines, that's a whole long crazy subject that obviously Alex Jones gets into. But with that being said, toys and are basically technology, and how, you know, humans sexually interact with machines, you know. And so it's like, if there's a technology that stimulates a human in a way that increases arousal, that's essentially the question you're asking. It's like, is it okay, is it morally okay or scripturally permissible for a Christian to engage in technology that increases arousal for the human? Because if that's the question, what are you gonna say when there are sex robots? You know what I mean? That, like, what is that sexually more? Like, I don't know, man. Like, we're gonna get into a place where it's like, how do you morally argue for humans whose consciousness have been uploaded into robots? Are they human, and do they have sexuality? You know what I mean? Like, I think it's this weird crossover between technology and humans, and how they integrate with each other, to be honest. And that's where my brain goes. That's why my brain is weird, and I don't post as much as Mike does.
I'm ready to disagree.
Go for it.
Yeah.
No,
so
I mean, I didn't even make a statement. But
I have to say,
I'm curious what you're just gonna
it's
on.
hard for me to discuss this, because I'm not an expert in either field. Like, I'm not a sex therapist. I'm also not a pastor. So for me, I defer to what I've learned from those people. And the one thing that's interesting is I've heard the perspective from pastors, you know, biblically, the marriage bed is undefiled. As long as it's just the two of you in the bedroom, have fun and do what you want and figure out what excites each other, learn together, have fun together, be awkward together, laugh together. And there's a weird line when it comes to sex toys of, like, does lube count? That's synthetic. That's not something that comes naturally out of your body. So is that adding, like, something we shouldn't be having to our bodies? Like, if you have that stance, that could be one of the extremes. But the one thing, I spoke to Dr. Corey Allen, who's a sex therapist that I have on my page all the time, who answers questions. He says the thing that a lot of people get caught up on is a lot of men feel inadequate. Like, if we add this into the bedroom, it's going to cause me to feel inadequate. You're not going to want to have sex with me anymore, that sort of thing. And a lot of women worry on the other side of, like, if we introduce this, my husband is not going to be able to give me pleasure anymore. It's only going to be this thing. And the thing that he focuses on, he goes, if you're threatened by it, you need to focus on the things that it can't do in your sexual life. And the thing is, sex is more than just putting something in a hole. I know that sounds graphic, but it's an intimate experience of you being with your spouse. And he said something that changed the way I thought of it. He said, the next sexual experience starts after you finish your last sexual experience. Like, you're building up your intimacy into the next one. And then once it's done, you're slowly building back into that one. And he said, no matter what toy can vibrate, pulse, go to the beat of music, all the stuff it can do, twist, turn, whatever it can do, it can't cuddle in bed with your spouse. It can't have a deep conversation after. It can't have a deep conversation that knows that person inside and out. It can't bring a level of intimacy. So to me, if you're doing it for something that's going to bring you closer to your spouse, you're going to use it together with them and have it be a fun experience that deepens your bond. I don't see anything wrong with that if it's going to bring you closer together. And it's something that's going to lead you into a spiritual act that's more pleasurable.
Man, that's a super interesting way to look at it. Is like, as soon as your sexual interaction is over, the next one is starting because of all the buildup. So I'm curious then, with that being the case and that the philosophy, are you scheduling the times of having sex, or once again, you don't have to speak personally, but I don't want to know.
I will.
I don't need to know exactly.
I don't care if you don't want to know. I'm going to tell you.
I don't need to know about you and Mary Jane, Peter Parker. Okay, but I'm curious, like, because if it's scheduled, then you kind of know what the time that you're building up to. But then also, if it's not scheduled, then maybe that adds like an element of, fun and intimacy. And I mean, because isn't that what sex is supposed to be? So is it good to schedule? Is it not good to schedule?
This is where I think it's so important for, like I talked before about how those three entities, like the parents, the church, and the school, have to be teaching about sex and sexuality, is because there's no hard and fast rule for every single person about what the sexual experience is going to be like. You can't say you're going to get married and sex is going to look this way. Like, everybody has different wants, desires, intimacies, things like that their partners give them, that they give their partner, that sort of thing. So you also have to go off of conviction. I know some people are very convicted never ever to touch a sex toy or lubricant or whatever, and they just feel convicted over it. Absolutely, you should not do it if you're feeling convicted over it. And I think when it comes to scheduling sex, it's the same thing. Some couples can thrive in that. Other couples, it would actually be difficult for them. For my wife and I can get a little personal, I don't care. We were having issues. I go to bed a lot later than she does. Like, I'm just not somebody who can go to bed early. And we tried for a while, like, to always be in bed at the same time, and then when we would be intimate, I would just lay awake for a while and like be like, I think I'm gonna go down and watch a movie, and like that felt weird, and it was kind of like taking away from our experience a little bit. It's like, well, just stay up here with me, and I was like, and I would, and she would fall asleep, and then I'd be like, okay, now do I get up? Like, it was just this really weird, it was this weird kind of tension. But the other thing that would happen, I'm sure every married couple has been through this, is when like one person is in the mood and the other isn't, and you lay in bed, one person starts making moves, having fun, whatever, and then the other one's like, oh, sorry, I have to be up early.
Denied.
Yeah, and you have those awkward moments, and unfortunately my wife and I were having those kind of more frequently than we liked, where like, she would make moves on me, and I'm like, oh, I have to be up early tomorrow, because I had a job where I had to be up at 3 a.m. for a long time. And vice versa, and it was causing some issues. So we actually had that hard conversation, because people worry about scheduling sex making it become more like robotic, it's scheduled, like it's not fun anymore. But for us, having that expectation of knowing it was coming on a certain night made it way more fun for us, because like we could tease each other throughout the day, that sort of thing. But we don't stick to our schedule. Like, we have those days where we know what's going to happen, we both expect it, that sort of thing. But anything on top of that, it just makes it even better. We still have those spontaneous moments too, but we just worried about getting in the rut of, we constantly are like hitting that rut of, we just can't get the timing right. Like, we know we're going to have these times together, and all the times on top of that are just for extra fun. And it really worked for us, and like brought us so much closer together. And it was such a cool thing to see something we were both nervous about, like, which was scheduling sex, and thinking it would be a bad thing, and then seeing it like reap benefits for our marriage like we never imagined.
So you're saying it's easier to schedule than to trust your spidey sense.
I was gonna ask, what do you do when your web shooter won't work?
Oh my God! Wait, are we having those problems, Matt? I was more curious of like what happens when it's scheduled, but then one person's not in the mood.
Yeah.
And does then that create an argument?
Well, no, because when you have the expectation, that changes everything.
Yeah.
Like,
Gotcha.
Marriage is about expectations in so many ways. We were all raised in different homes with different lifestyles, and we have things that we do that make us comfortable, but we also have things that we expect of other people that make us comfortable as well. Like, if you grew up in a home where dad was off working and mom was home all the time, you might unknowingly bring that expectation into your marriage. And then when your wife wants to work, you're like, what are you talking about? That's not what I've experienced. That's not how marriage works. And you have those expectations that you don't even realize you have, which can lead to arguments and that sort of thing. So for us, when we had the expectation of like this night during the week, like we know it's going to be fun, we can like I said, we can tease each other throughout the day. We know what's happening. We know we're gonna have fun, and we make it like we make it fun. Whereas I could see how some couples, if they had it scheduled, it could go the total opposite direction. It's like, okay, well, it's Tuesday night, let's get going, and that doesn't seem fun at all. But we make it fun, and I think it's all in. It depends on the couple, and it depends on your relationship and what you expect of each other.
So you gotta not just schedule, but have some sexy scheduling.
Yes,
like it's not just like a job that you have to do this many times a week. It is like, hey, we know when we're going to be getting into bed together. Let's be leading up to that as we go. And
we plan fun things. We'll be like, let's watch a romantic movie or something like that together. And we'll like cuddle on the couch. We'll be like, let's go out on a date night or something like that. So it leads into other benefits where we like also schedule dates. We also like, that's our time together, but leading up to it, we want to make that effective and fun too.
For sure. Yeah, you were talking about things that like maybe when you're being raised by a certain family dynamic that you're not essentially like comfortable with, just because of maybe where you've been raised, like what part of the world, or who you're raised by, like depending on how conservative or how liberal maybe your family is. But for me, growing up in the Midwest, a lot of my life in Indiana, a lot of my life in Kentucky, I had very little experience with anyone that was homosexual. And so it wasn't until I think high school that I even knew that it was a thing. I think that there was one guy at our school that like came out, and it was just kind of like, oh, okay, well, that's interesting. And then college, you kind of get to know a couple more people. And then moving to Orlando, it is a big part of Orlando. I mean, I feel like we're almost the pride mecca of the world. And so it was interesting the other day. We got a DM from somebody just saying, because I think we reached out to them saying, hey, we just had an episode with whoever the guest was, and we see that, you are a follower of them. We thought maybe you'd like our show. And they responded by saying, well, unfortunately, you're a Christian podcast, and because I'm homosexual, I can't watch your content and I can't follow your page. And it just made me want to like dive in. And so we dove into the conversation of, well, why do you think that? And I even asked for guest recommendations of who are homosexual Christians that we could have to give their opinion on the show. And I think that they were just kind of taken aback that, first of all, that they would get a response, and second, that it would be positive and just like accepting. And so I'm curious for you guys, because the term homosexual Christian, I'm sure some people would just say that doesn't even exist. That's like a unicorn. But for you guys, where do you see that terminology? Can there be a homosexual Christian?
Man, that is a loaded question, my brother. Because, I mean, there's different stances. There's like side A and side B of the argument, where basically people will say you can not have any same-sex attraction and be a Christian. Somebody will say that. There's another argument that people will say you can have same-sex attraction and be a Christian, but if you don't indulge in those attractions and desires. That would be more like Jackie Hill Perry's stance. And then there are others that will go into complete affirmation that would say, you can be a same-sex attracted person and also engage in those desires and still be a Christian. So those are like the major arguments that are out there right now. I affirm, I think it's side B. I may be mislabeling it, but I believe that homosexuality, the act of homosexuality, is sinful, and that would put me in the category of non-affirming, because I don't affirm the act of homosexuality. But I know people who are same-sex attracted that don't engage in that behavior, and they commit those desires and temptations to the Lord, and they pursue holiness. And I find that very admirable, because that has to be a massive sacrifice that I have no idea, what that feels like. I can't comprehend. I can't imagine what it'd be like to say, I lean this way strongly, but I'm choosing not to for the sake of my belief in my Savior. So I don't think there is something that I can say. I can say what I believe, but I don't think it'd be fair for me to say with absolute certainty, you are a Christian and you are not, because I believe the gospel is we are broken, sinful people redeemed by a Savior who is perfect and loving, despite our evilness and brokenness. So if I say you're a Christian, you're not a Christian. The Bible also says salvation belongs to the Lord. So I want to be careful who I call a Christian and who I don't. I mean, the Bible does say, you will know them by their fruit, and there are certain things you should not do. There are certain things that people will not inherit the kingdom of heaven if they do. But at the same time, I don't know how the Lord is working within them to sanctify them from those things. And so that's how I respond to the questions that we get on our page. Like, can I do X and still be a Christian? Can I believe, Y and still be a Christian? I don't like those questions. I don't think that they're fair. I think that there's too much complexity, and the onus is completely the Lord's. You know what I mean? Like, I can't tell you, we were joking about earlier how I was saying, well, you're not a Christian because you believe in Halloween. It's goofy because, you know, that why would that cancel your salvation? Why would that cancel the sanctifying, predeterminate work of the Holy Spirit? I mean, and I say that joking, but I say this also in my stories all the time when I talk about Bible and theology stuff. Everyone believes in predetermination. If you believe that God knows everything, you believe in predestination. Not predetermination. You believe in predestination. Everybody believes in it in one way, shape, or form. I just happen to believe in it in the Calvinistic sense. Whereas, you know, other people, they believe that predestination is something that God already knows and he acts upon, you know, from those future decisions. Anyways, I'm getting into theology. I'm getting off the question. But that's the way I believe that, you know, God is the author and the finisher of our faith. So who am I to say God has not authored you and he has not finished you? You know what I mean? That is a huge statement. That is, I think that is blaspheming the Holy Spirit to take his place, because he's the one who said, it's mine. This is something that I do. I am the one who, you know, this is in my hand, because it says, you know, who's going to pluck us from his hand? Nobody's going to do that. Nobody's going to pluck us from God's hand. So I really, really discourage talk of, you know, well, they're a Christian and they're not a Christian. Especially when it comes to Kanye West. We could talk about that if you like.
Well, it's interesting because on this topic, like, okay, for instance, my old pastor from back home, I remember seeing him struggle just in a private setting with getting invited to a gay wedding. And he was like, you know, on one hand, I love this person, I want to support them. On the other hand, you know, like what's the church going to think of me? And that's a totally different, I guess, scenario because of the position that he holds. But I know was it also on your feed about the gay marriage? Like, should we attend a gay wedding? And it once again made me think, like, man, that is a great question, because I'm sure that there's a lot of Christians out there. If you're, I mean, especially here in Orlando, but I'm sure just, you know, anywhere in the world these days, if you have a friend who is gay and they're having a homosexual wedding and you get invited, like, that's probably the first time they're having that thought of, oh, well, what do I do? Like, I've been friends with this person for how many years? Like, do I go? Do I not go?
Yeah, here's the thing. I think more Christians need to get comfortable with the phrase, I don't know. And unfortunately, a lot of Christians, whether they're in ministry or not, or a new Christian, they feel like they need to have all the answers and they feel like they need to have a strong stance on things. For me, that question right now is I don't know. It means I'm looking into it. It means I'm talking to people. It means I'm reading my Bible. It means I'm trying to seek guidance on it. We need to be more comfortable with that, because there's nothing wrong with saying I don't know. And do you want to come? Do you want to tell me your opinion? And do you want to come alongside me while I look for answers on this topic? Regardless of what the topic is, whether it's about anything, I think it's okay to say I don't know. When it comes to wondering if something is a sin, I've seen this. I think Matt and I were talking about this the other day. I've seen so many people ask me if something is a sin. Is like, can I do this? Can I smoke weed? Can I do drugs? Can I drink? Can I get drunk? It's so many people saying, is it a sin? And I hate that phrase, is it a sin? Because when we ask somebody, is this a sin? We want that person. A lot of us are just looking for somebody else to be our moral authority. We're looking for somebody else to give us permission to do it or tell us not to do it. And when you put that in another human being, that's a bad idea. You need to ask, not ask, is this a sin? But you need to ask people to come alongside you and look for answers on your own, because ultimately our moral authority is God. And we can look to Scripture to have him teach us where we should go on certain issues. But people always say, like, well, this pastor said it is, so I'm trusting him. He said yes, he's a pastor, he's a moral authority, so I'm going to do what he says. Well, not all pastors agree on everything. So we need to read the Bible and we need to dive in on our own and not look to other humans to be our moral authority. We need to look to God to be our moral authority. And that's a very difficult thing to do, because it's very easy to give that authority to a pastor, but you can find what you're looking for. If you want to find a pastor who says that something is or isn't a sin, you'll find it. Go look for it. They're all out there. I see a lot of pastors on social media, on TikTok and stuff, who say the craziest things, and they defend it, like, where I'm like, where are they reading this in the Bible? I'm sure you do too. But they're pastors. They're even priests and have like the clerical robe on, and I'm like, yeah, you'll find it. And so it's important for us to do personal work in our faith and not just put our faith and moral authority in what other people say is a yes or a no.
Preach. Yeah.
It's a very Protestant answer of you, by the way. Very Protestant of you.
Well, we'll jump off the topic of sexuality, and so you guys can like not be so tense. I was looking at Matt over there, and I was like, he's about to just break out of his suit.
No, it's the thing is we can hear all the DMs we're gonna get when people listen to this. Like, did you just say?
Well, dude, his page though embraces it, like whereas my page we kind of just goof off around a little bit. So we don't like we get into serious topics, but not as much as he does. This is just like a Tuesday for him, you know.
Well, like I said, on a lighter topic, I'm curious because you guys are both funny guys. You seem like you like to have fun, good time. You're running meme pages. So I'm curious if you guys know a fun way to inject fun or happiness or just like spontaneous, spontaneity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there we go. Sorry, that was like spelling Ecclesiastes for me. Do you have a way or something that you do in your own life that like people can follow? I know Ashley and I recently have been doing this thing where we'll pull up to a red light and we'll roll our windows down and we'll crank a song that is very recognizable. And we both have these like cheap microphones that we bought off of Amazon, and we'll do car karaoke with the car next to us.
Nice.
And so
that's amazing.
And we make sure that we choose, wholesome songs, but I mean, it's usually like Miley Cyrus or, think about your wedding top 40 songs or whatever, Party in the USA and we'll just pull up beside and we'll sing with them, and it makes our day better. It makes our relationship better, and it makes the people's day next to us, because what's the worst thing while you're driving? It's waiting in traffic. It's waiting at a red light. And so we've just been trying to think of like, okay, what's ways that we can inject fun into our relationship and our world, but then also inject it into others.
I got a great one that we just started doing recently.
Yes.
I don't know if it has a name. I'm sure somebody has a name for it, but we just call it like our Netflix challenge. If one person in the couple, not calling out my wife here, but if one person in the couple tends to like really cheesy or bad romantic comedies, or if you like movies in general, what we do is you start a movie together, you hit play. The second that movie hits 20 minutes, you pause it, stop it wherever it's at mid-sentence, and you both put your predictions for what you think is going to happen for the rest of the movie.
Oh.
And then it's a way to make bad movies good and make them fun. Like we were watching a Netflix movie the other day, and we paused it and we said, well, I think that character is going to turn out to be the bad guy. I think they're going to end up together. And you ask each other specific questions like, well, we know they're going to get married, but are they going to get married in a church or like in her parents' backyard? Like you do things like that where there's like little bets, and then as they happen in the movie, you have like little victories, and it's so much fun to go through the movie together and have a totally unique experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing that now.
I'm super boring. I am so boring because we don't do anything like that. I mean, we have a 2-year-old. He's about to be 2 in a week or two. And our favorite thing right now, thank you. Our favorite thing right now is just to talk, like at the end of the day, talk about the new things that he's doing. And that's honestly like brings us the most joy right now. Just like, oh, he said this today. It was so cute. And I'll say something today. So he likes to do this thing where, and Marcelo, if you hear this in 10 years, I'm so sorry. But he does this thing, he'll get a boo-boo and he'll be like, dad kiss it or mama kiss it. And he had a little something on his wee-wee that was hurting him.
No.
and I was like, oh, buddy, does your wee-wee hurt? And so I was like putting some Aquifer on it, and he was like, mama, kiss it. I was like, oh my God. No, buddy, no. We're not doing that. No, kiss it.
Goodness.
No kiss it. And he was like, mama, kiss it. he's like dug his feet. It's like, no, listen. Mama's not kissing that boo-boo. I was like, Mama will kiss your hand. You might kiss your... He's like, oh, Mama kissed him. Mama kissed wee-wee.
I feel like I should have like saved your son a little bit and just interrupted your story, but hey, it's there. It will always be there.
Well, my mother-in-law just happened to be there as well because she was watching him and we were just picking him up. And so yeah, it's gonna be known. It's like everybody's. It's just one of those things that it was so funny, but we didn't.
Now
this is something we laugh about.
So you have an almost 2-year-old,
Yep.
and I know, Mike, you have a few kids of your own, a little bit older, right?
Yeah, a little bit older. Yeah.
Is there ever a time where you're, speaking of fun, like, is there ever a time that your kids may be having like too much fun and you have to put them in timeout? Or if timeout is even a punishment that you guys use or utilize? I don't know, with a 2-year-old, should they like always be in timeout? Isn't that like the terrible twos?
My kid, he's just entering into terrible twos. Like I can tell, he's just like frantic. But his favorite thing is to forage. Like he just needs to forage through everything. He like, we'll go to the park, and instead of playing on the swings or the monkey bars or whatever, or go down the slide, he just wants to sit by a tree and just like pick through the acorns. And he's like, oh, that's a good one. Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. He's like mumbling to himself. So I don't know if it's like he inherited some of the psychopath from me or what's going on there. But
Does he collect them?
yeah, he'll have a whole handful of acorns, and he'll just hold them, and it's really cute. He's like, this one, hold the acorn, hold it.
Get your pocketbooks ready because he's going to want all the Pokemon cards.
Yes, he's definitely gonna be a collector. But he'll do that at home too. Like he'll want to dig in the trash can and just like want to forage everywhere he possibly can. And since he's already foraged 90% of the house, he's always looking for new places to forage and dig and scratch. And so he gets in the timeout because he goes dumpster diving a lot. So.
See, I just think when it comes to like punishments and those sorts of things, you have to be flexible and you can't have such hard and fast rules because every kid is their own like unique being and they have different things that they give different currencies to. So like you also see there's so many freaking parenting experts now. Like my wife came up to me the other day and she was like, we can't use the words timeout anymore because this expert says that using the words timeout makes them feel excluded and we don't want our kids to feel excluded. So I have a friend who calls them time ins, which we don't go that far, but they call them time ins, where they're like, no, you're included with us. You're just sitting calmly. But there's so many opinions out there that you have to figure out. Like my oldest is an introvert, so to give him time to himself is a blessing. So why? But one of my other kids is an extrovert, so that's an awful punishment for him to sit by himself. But for oldest, he's like, okay, cool, I'll go sit. Yeah, that sounds great. So you have to kind of treat every kid differently, but also evolve as things evolve too. You can't just have those hard and fast black and white rules all the time for their entire life, or they'll find ways around them.
Yeah. I'm curious because you're talking about like setting those guidelines, and I'm curious for Matt, do you ever like, and maybe this is just coming from the teacher in me, I've never parented a child on my own, but I can say that I've been in a classroom with about 30 of them for, sun up to sundown. Well, no, it's like, I guess 7 to 2:30, whatever. But I mean, that's a long time with a bunch of kids. And they always talk about, like, if you want to be a good teacher, you have to have a set schedule and keep them to that schedule to keep them from, getting into trouble and doing things that they shouldn't be doing. Does that also convert into being a good parent? Like, do you have like a set schedule for like daily routines?
So I'm pretty sure I struggle from OCD pretty bad. Pretty sure I do. Okay. I mean, I think, Mike's been with me this weekend. I think
we're complete opposites in that. I'm a roll with the punches kind of guy. We were
structure.
texting when we were packing to come here. He goes, I've already packed my bag 30 times. He said something like that. I got to make sure. And I was like, I'm packing like 5 minutes before I go to the airport.
Yeah, whereas I am kind of a free spirit in a lot of things. There's a lot more things I need structure in. And I think, so that's my parenting style, but I also feel like there's a lot of benefits to having a set structure for my son. So like, he wakes up at a certain time, eats at a certain time, goes to bed at a certain time. And I can see that like his body's ready to eat at a certain time, he's ready to sleep at a certain time. And it's really, really great for our life because we know what to expect from him. And we'll see a lot of parents with like screaming kids because we know that they're tired and they're overly hungry and they're not getting what they need. I did used to work in foster care and adoption, and I have done some studies on childhood development and like trauma-informed care and stuff like that. And I feel like when kids have structure, they have security. And when they have security, they have confidence. And when they have confidence, they have self-esteem, and those things stem from each other. I'm not saying that, I'm super meticulous and it needs to be exact timings. Like we have some fluctuation there, but I feel that child maturity and child growth is best you know, it's best handled within a structure. It grows on the lattice of structure. Look, I'm over here, professor over here. Professor Miles Morales over here. But no, I think that I think I've seen the rewards of it. Like my son started walking earlier. He speaks in almost complete sentences. He's not even 2 years old. You know, I think he's advanced from those things and from the way that we've trained him. Not saying those two necessarily correlated, because I know every kid's different, but I think he grows well in that environment.
Yeah, if your goal was to impress me, I am impressed.
And this is why my wife is a complete blessing, because she always reminds me, she goes, we are not raising children, we are raising adults.
Yeah.
We're raising good adults.
Right.
And you have to emulate the type of person that you want your child to be. You can't expect a child never to use an iPad or a phone when you're on your phone all the time. Like they want to be like you.
Yeah.
So if you're somebody who gossips about people behind their back, guess what your kid's probably going to feel like it's okay to do. If you're somebody who fights a lot and yells at people a lot, guess what your kid is likely to do. It's really, really hard to look at ourselves in the mirror sometimes, and a spouse is a really good way to activate that, where they can call you out on things and tell you how to be better at things in a loving way. Like my wife lovingly calls me out about being on my phone around our kids a lot, because like I don't want our kids to want to just watch stuff all the time, and we can't be that person then. So it's really, really hard to accept those things that we have to get better at, because we can't have a double standard with our kids. Otherwise they're going to grow up thinking other things are double standards. Why would my kid want to live a faith that I have if I'm not living other things in my life well?
Man. Yeah, that's so good. I know, like last episode, Maddie was on talking about how a lot of times we say, oh, boys will be boys. But he's like, the truth is, boys will be men.
Yeah.
And so if you don't like get that in your mind early on, like before you know it, they're already going to be influenced by older teenagers, older boys than them. And that's where they're going to get what it means to be a man. And then you're going to lose your influence on them, and it's going to be too late. Mm-hmm. But I know that I think this was a couple years ago when you and I were battling Thanos, and we were in the midst. For anybody that's listening, once again, reminder: Star-Lord, Spider-Man here. Okay, yep. So we're battling Thanos, and in the middle of this battle and this fight, you like lean over and whisper in my ear some kind of story. And I like barely heard you, and I was like, "Is there a better time than this?" And I know as superheroes, that's what we do, is like save people. But you were saying something about saving someone from a cult.
Oh my gosh, this story.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So I have been waiting for years to have a time to sit down with you and be able to talk about this. Can you elaborate on what you meant? I just heard cult, save.
That was like the best setup to the story, by the way. I have to give you props for that, because I did not know where you were going with this. But dude, this is one of the most wild stories I've had from doing my Instagram page. So every day I do a daily topic where people share their feelings on it, and I share their what they send. And one day, somebody wanted to talk about cults. I think they had escaped a cult, something like that. And they wanted to hear more stories of people who escape cults, because the sad reality is people start cults under the name of Jesus, and it drives me nuts that people misappropriate the Bible to start cults for selfish reasons, for money, control, whatever reason they do it. This girl sent this story about a cult she had escaped that was all on Zoom, which sounds crazy, but I mean, look at our times. I mean, it's a reality. It's a Korean cult that someone can correct me if my DMs if I'm wrong, but essentially what they believe is their leader is the second coming of Christ, and he is going to take his followers up to heaven with him when his life is over. So they're actively recruiting people to be saved. They legitimately think they're saving lives, these people who have been brainwashed in this cult. And this girl shared the story. She told a lot of the details of what goes on in this Bible study, how she realized and how she got out. And so it was very scary, because the Bible study starts out normal. It's just like a great Bible study for the first 4 to 6 months. And then they start introducing their cuckoo for Cocoa Puff stuff. But by then you're so invested in your time. These people know you. They know where you're from. So to escape is a very scary thing, because they know where you live. They know your family. They know you intimately, because you get to know them. It's a Bible study. You're open. So I published her story, And about a week later, I got a message from this woman at midnight. My wife was fast asleep and I was about to go to bed, and I see this message come in, and she says, "Hey, I remember a week ago you were talking about cults. Can you send me that story, because I think I might be in that cult?" And I said, sure. So I look for it and I find
No
it.
way.
And it goes, "No, I don't think that's it. There's a couple details." And she was in denial in this message. And I sent her other resources. I said, "Listen, I don't know for sure what you're in," but I sent her a couple of other resources of people who have escaped. And she sent in all caps, she said, "Oh my God, I'm in a cult." And she had this moment of realization that she had to get out. And I said, "Listen, I'm going to put you in touch with this girl who sent me the message. We're going to figure out what's going on. Don't panic." And she sent me all these awful messages saying, "I'm so dumb. How did I fall for this? I feel so stupid." She sent all this stuff, and it was heartbreaking to read. And I had to reassure her, dumb people do not get into cults. They emotionally manipulate in the smartest ways to get smart people in these cults. It's not just dumb people. So anyway, I asked her for more because I wanted to write this article kind of exposing this cult a little bit in case more people who follow me were in it. Got their stories, and what they basically found is that this cult was targeting people who follow Christian meme pages. They named Deuteronomy memes specifically, and they named a couple others specifically, and other Christian inspiration pages, because they know the people who follow those pages are already Christians. And they basically say "Hey, it's COVID, it stinks, come join this Zoom Bible study. You'll grow so much." And the way they kind of lure you in and say, "It's through this church, we'll give it to you for free. Normally we charge for it." So I wrote this whole thing basically sharing these two women's stories. When I posted it, I got hundreds of stuff from women saying, "I've gotten that DM." A lot of people said, "Oh my gosh, I was just about to start this Bible study." And it's insane how common it is and how secretive it is. And apparently at the end, you take a test and then you're a part of this cult. I believe the pronunciation is Shincheonji. If you want to look it up, it's a very fascinating cult, and their recruitment measures, they really target Americans, and I believe people in the UK too. But it's wild, and I was so glad that she was able to get out safely. And apparently they're very rude, and they do a lot of threats when you leave. But if you're listening and you've gotten that message, or you think this might be it, you can DM me on the page, and I can put you in touch with people who have escaped to help you get a safe way out. But man, it's crazy that stuff goes on.
Yeah. And it's called Shin.
I mean, don't quote me on it. It's Shincheonji is, I believe, the name of it. But
Okay.
they don't call themselves that when they contact you. They'll call themselves Word of Life Church, or insert name here, Bible College, stuff like that. They seem like different organizations. They build complete websites. They have a location on Google Maps. It seems 100% legit. But if something feels wrong, something probably is wrong.
Sometimes do they refer to themselves as the meme Illuminati? No, I'm kidding. Man, when you said OMG, I just realized I'm in a cult, or however you phrase that. It made me think, is there a TV show about this? Because that would be an amazing show of OMG, I'm in a cult, or OMG, right. I'm in a MLM or a pyramid scheme or whatever. I feel like that would be good TV. But I feel like, as crazy as that is, I'm sure that Matt, with you being behind the scenes of Memes for Jesus, and people not always knowing your face and who you are, and they just see the cartoon Jesus and all the funny stuff that you do, I am sure that crazy things have also happened to you, where I'm sure people will come at you saying, "Oh, how dare you? You're racist," or "You're not as sensitive to this topic," and then you probably reply to them "Actually, I'm a man of color," and has that ever happened where people just think that you're this white dude behind a computer screen?
Oh man. Well, first off, Mike is a white dude, so my buddy Michael Schaefer.
All right.
He's the one who started Memes for Jesus. But I am, for those of you who are listening, I am a chocolatey Hispanic male that I'm half Puerto Rican and half Dominican, which is why I chose Miles Morales, because he's half Hispanic and half black. But anyways,
so good.
There's one time where, because we also sell merch on our website, memesforjesus.com, that has really sassy Christian sayings on it, like it's an image of Jesus, and it says BRB, meaning Jesus will be right back. Which I wore yesterday to Disney and got a ton of compliments. It was awesome. We have other stuff Jesus, what is it? Be salty and lit, not be instead of salty and I forget. It just says be salty and lit. I wish I would know this better. But and apparently some lady she went on our website and saw our merch, and she got really triggered because she said it's cultural appropriation to use the words like lit and cool and, you know, abbreviations like BRB, because those are black phrases and they're not to be sold for profit, and much less by a white male or something like that. And I was like, first of all, I'm probably darker than you are. I know that just by looking at your profile picture. Second of all, you're crazy. Are you telling me you're trying to legislatively enforce the usage of words? Do you realize how oppressive you're being to me right now? Like you can't do that. Like there's nobody that's on the side of this. And so she just went back and forth and was absolutely insane, totally unreasonable. And she's like, no, do not talk. I am the one talking now. I'm like, and I just like, okay, go ahead. And I would say, okay. And she was like, don't respond anymore. And I was like, okay.
Okay. Cool.
And I just kept responding and triggered her so hard. And I was having so much fun because we get people like that are just like, for me, that brings me life. When somebody gets triggered and they get offended by the dumbest thing, I get more powerful. I get more years added to my life when I interact with these people. But anyway, so I just kind of waved it off. And then I think maybe a week later, Mike and I were employed at a place, in the same place at that time. And we still are in a way, but like, apparently there was somebody who called our job and said that we needed to be, or Michael needed to be trained in racial reconciliation because of the merchandise that he sold. They called the CEO of our job. And I was like, wow. I did not know that people were this insane, that they would pursue something so innocuous to this end. And so, yeah, that was the craziest experience that I can remember that we've gone through. But it's always something. Like every day, there's always somebody who's triggered about something that they shouldn't be. I have this one Muslim guy that I've been messaging back and forth for probably about like 8 months. And he's like, brother, you must convert to Islam, brother. He's like, every day we'll talk.
I think we're talking to the same guy.
Oh yeah,
I get those messages all the time too.
Oh,
we're probably
man.
talking the same guy.
Maybe, yeah. We'll look at DMs after this. But
He's a great guy. I love him.
I love him. I really like the guy. He's like 20 years old. Is he 20? Did he tell you he's 21? Did he tell you his name?
I think we're talking the same
Yeah.
guy.
And like he'll send me these videos of these old Muslim guys and I'll be like, see, this is why you must renounce Christianity, brother. See, it's so clear. And I'm like, and I'll just refute every single line that he says. Like, I'm like, no, you're like lying. These are lies.
Just send him. This is something I learned from Ashley's dad, because he said that like when he would have conversations with Muslims and they would, you know, argue with him, he would just put on a YouTube video in whatever language they spoke of someone that had a near-death experience, and then
Saw Jesus.
and they would say, okay, who's he saying he saw? And then they'd look at him and they'd be like, oh, he said only Jesus. Only Jesus. All right, let's watch another one. All right, only Jesus. All right, so no Muhammad, right? And I don't know if that's the best way to dispute that.
Are you talking about Jabil Qureshi? What is his name? Jim Caviezel.
Throwback Jesus joke.
Qureshi, Nabil Qureshi. Is that what you're talking about? The guy who has he converted to Christianity from being like an Islam scholar or something like that.
Oh no, these are just random YouTube videos
okay.
of people that said I had a near-death experience, and when I came back to life, I wanted everyone to know that this is who I saw.
Yeah, those are great.
Yeah.
See, when it comes though, I mean, Matt brought up getting these triggered people all the time. Like it happens to both of us, especially, you know, I talk about controversial stuff and I post both sides of arguments all the time. But triggered people, from what I've found, I don't want to take away from them. I don't like calling them triggered people, but people.
What do you call them?
People who get angry. I mean, they get angry about something.
Now I'm triggered.
The people who send me angry messages, from what I've found, they just want to be heard. And the reason they get triggered and the reason they get angry usually has a legitimate reason in their life. And I say, like, the people who are extreme politically, things like that, is usually because something has happened in their life, whether it's like their parents, their family, like something has happened that's made them that way, that if you knew the reason, you'd be more sympathetic towards them. And usually if you just sit back and don't respond and just let people talk and share their story, you can understand a little more and understand their perspective better, and then all of a sudden the anger goes away once they get it all out.
Let me just say something.
He's like, I got to defend myself.
No. Christians Who Curse sometimes sounds like the way edgier name when you visit the page, but he has the heart of gold that you would never know if you'd never interacted with him. On a daily basis like I do, where our page has the name of Jesus plastered on it, and I am evil. I'm pure evil, man. I'll argue and troll them to
I
kingdom
go to Matt
come.
and ask for help, and I'll be like, hey, I have someone talking about this issue, and he'll be like, block them. And I'm like, no, I want to talk to them, please. So, like, I respond to legitimately every hate complaint that I get.
Yes.
And I love just saying why. Because usually if I feel that it's unfounded, I just want to hear why. Because once you keep digging through the whys, you get to the reason, and then that's something I can like relate to. Like when you get down to like church hurt, well, they're like, I don't like that, and then you go back and they're like, well, I was really betrayed by my church. I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry. Like you shouldn't have been betrayed by your church, and then you can find that link, and then you can build a relationship from there. But most people who get that sort of angry that they'll message a page they've never messaged before or put an angry comment, there's usually pain or hurt behind it that just has to be uncovered.
And it probably helps that you have kept your identity anonymous so that you can give certain feedback if you're getting like this hate, because maybe with Matt, if people know you, people know where you live or whatever, and you like interact with certain stuff, you might have Beauty and the Beast style like Gaston pitchforks outside your house or whatever. But I think that like what you talked about as far as like villainizing maybe the triggered people or the angry people, whatever we want to call them, it's like, and maybe this isn't the perfect analogy, but I'm going back to Disney. The old Disney films, you knew the villain because they were just pure evil, and there was really no justification as to why they were evil. It was just like, wow, that guy is just like really hateful.
Well, until now, where every Disney villain has their backstory being put into theaters. So
right now Disney's going back and is like, oh, this is actually what was going on with Cruella. And Maleficent or whoever.
But it's so easy to point the finger at someone who disagrees with us and just say that they're wrong, because it dehumanizes it. It says, I don't want to learn why they believe what they believe. So just saying no and just ignoring, to me, is not the right thing to do.
It's great.
I don't like I've never blocked a person from my page. I don't like blocking people. Like there are people even on my personal social media that I see and I think their opinions are nuts, but I don't like blocking them because I don't want to live in an echo chamber. And social media algorithms put people in echo chambers where you just see things that are going to make you happy and affirm what you believe. And the bad thing about echo chambers are they aren't supported when you go outside your walls of your comfort zone. So that's why we see so much talk about safe spaces and all those sorts of things, is because when you're in your home, you're in your safe space, and that includes with social media because of how the algorithm goes. So with what my page does, where I post both sides of an argument, people are reading something they've literally never seen before, so they jump that, no, that's heretical, and then when they look and see like, hey, a lot of Christians actually agree with this, they message me and they're like, how is this possible? And they're confused and they're hurt and they feel like they've been lied to and that sort of thing. That's why I want them to talk about these things, or at least know that these opinions exist. Because if you live in your echo chamber, you're never going to grow. There's no reason to grow when everybody agrees with you. There's no reason to take risks if everybody agrees with you. We need to start associating with people that we vehemently disagree with to find out why, so that we can grow and they can grow too.
Speaking of echo chambers, let's talk about Christian conferences. So I was talking to a friend the other day about Christian conferences, and they said, okay, well, why do you even go to those? And it kind of caught me off guard, because I just thought that was something that like all Christians do. We've all been to conferences, and we all maybe look at other conferences that we want to go to or whatever. And when they asked me, like, okay, well, defend like why? Like, why Christian conferences? Why do you go to those? Why, like that's your vacation days. Like, wouldn't you rather be going and enjoying your vacation, relaxing, and you're going to be around a bunch of strangers that you'll never probably see again? and it made me really like get a little insecure about, because I was like going into the conversation like, oh my gosh, Passion Conference, it was incredible, it was amazing, and they're like, why? And I was like, oh, what? Well, and then and all the reasons that I had, I was like, well, I got to see like Lecrae on my birthday, and they had Hillsong there, and I was like naming off all these artists, and they were like, yeah, I could care less about that. I was like, okay, well, what about like seeing this person preach? And I learned so much, and I was able to like interact with and see like tens of thousands of other Christians that are like doing exactly what I'm doing at the same age. They're like, yeah, all right, yeah, moving on.
Yeah,
and I really struggled, I guess, to defend it.
No, I think that the way I see them is like it's they're recharging stations. You know, if you work in a job, like you're a podcaster, and when you work in a job that's really unique like that, and you go to a podcast convention, you feel like you can like take your mask off a little bit. You can be yourself because all these people have the same interests as me. I can nerd out a little more. I can be myself. And there's that element of, and then when you go home, you're like feeling good. You're feeling recharged. You're happy. And I think, you know, when we're out in the world, we're called to evangelize. We're called to be, you know, examples of Christ. And that can exhaust people sometimes, because sometimes it feels like you have that mask on. You always need to be the best example of Christ, that sort of thing. So when you go to a conference, you can have that same feeling of, oh, I'm just taking it all off. I'm around Christians. I can be myself. I can nerd out a little bit about theology and have fun with this, and then go home refreshed and renewed in my faith. Like, it's the same way we need to sleep every night. We need to have those times where we focus on our faith to grow as well.
Yeah, I mean, I also think there's a lot of Christians that are just like inherently, naturally, like oppositional and contrarian. It's like, okay, cool, dude. You know, you don't like what most people like. Good for you. Great job. You know, here's your clap. And I think that's just like a hipster thing. It's like, oh, you go to those conferences? What's the point? As they like smoke their cigar. Wow,
my
dude.
friend's gonna hate me now.
Yeah, I'll tell him. I mean, he can DM me if you want. Like, but that's the thing. There's so many. That's so annoying. Like, why are people just contrarian just to be contrarian? Not to say that I agree or disagree with him, but that's just like a common thing with certain Christians. Is like, well, you know, well, that's Catholic, so I just don't like it. Or, you know, without even attempting to engage with the conversation. So yeah, I'm no Christians who curse sometimes, but I love to discuss theology, and I love to see differing views, and that's where I'll send like voice messages with people in the DMs and talk about why they believe what they believe and what the other views might be, what might help them see that there's more than just black and white views on a lot of things. So when it comes to conferences, I'm like, I don't care. Go to a conference if you want. It's fun. There's nothing, you know, inherently evil about getting together, having fun with other Christians. I mean, it might be very, you know, corporate America to have the lasers and the lights and, you know, oh, you're going to a rock concert. You're supposed to be in church, hanging out, being somber, crying in front of the altar, being oppressed. Let God, you know, like there's prosperity gospel and then there's poverty gospel, which, you know, I don't think either of those are right. I think we can have joy and celebration amongst believers. What's the problem? You know, why are you mad at people having fun? And I get mad when I see people having fun, but I keep that to myself. I don't need to make a post about it. I don't need to, you know, put my stinky opinion in the world for everyone to hear. Just let people have fun sometimes.
But also, it's easier in life to hate something than to love something. Because when you love something, you know you're already subscribing to a smaller group of people who love something, where even if everyone outside of that circle doesn't hate it, they just don't love it. So for me, you know, you were referencing Pokemon before. It's so easy for us to say like, I hate Pokemon. It's a dumb anime cartoon, dumb video game, waste of time. But for someone to look someone they've never met before in the eye and say, I love Pokemon, you're taking a risk because you're hoping that they love it too, and that sort of thing. But it's easier to say you hate something because you know the other person is more likely to hate it too. That's why it's so trendy right now. Say, I hate the church. It's more likely that someone's going to agree with you than disagree with you. But to say that you love something and you're in that club and you're having fun with it is way more difficult for people to do. That's why you get so many angry people on pages, because it's so much easier in life to not like something than to admit that you love something despite its flaws.
I think that we can all agree this is a safe Pokemon space, right? Yeah. Just want to make that clear. I know we're running out of time. We're getting to the end here. I'm curious for you guys, both as married men, how do you guys foster relationships with other couples? Like now that you've went through, your dating life where you probably had, some couple friends or maybe even like some single friends, still in that part. And then you get married. And so you probably want to start having, married friends. And then once you start having kids, I'm sure it's like, okay, we want to start having other family friends or maybe you just get to the point where you're like, I'm so invested with all my time into just my wife and my kid or kids, and maybe you don't have time for friends. Like, so how do you keep intentional with the people that matter the most to you in your lives?
I think it's shout out to all the husbands out there who are in this situation, but I think like when women make friends, they hope their husbands will get along. So a lot of times like you're friends with a couple, like despite the other, like you guys are cool with each other. Yeah. Like you're not necessarily deep, but like you can put up with each other. You can have some basic conversations while your wives are super, super close. And I think
you're just trying to find one thing that you agree on that you like.
Yeah, but I think
we'll talk about that for the next, 15 years.
Yeah. I think men confuse that with friendship. And they think like, well, I have these people in my life where men have, I will generalize here, men have a way more difficult time going deeper than women do. Somebody once described to me, and I think this is so cool and true, they said women define their close friends by who they know the most about, and men define their close friends by who they spend the most time with. So two dudes can sit in silence and play a video game for 5 hours together, and when they walk out, they feel like they've had the best bro time ever.
Guilty.
Whereas if you put two women in that same situation, they would feel like complete strangers. And I think that's obviously not true for every man and woman, but I think there's a lot of truth to that. And you have to take steps to do the opposite. You have to take steps to deepen that friendship more than just sitting with each other. Because men view friendship like that, they think, well, because this husband's here, I'm going to see him a lot, my wife is friends with his wife, that's an excuse for friendship, when we have to take those steps to go deeper. And it's interesting because I've done these polls, especially with men on my page, because I think it was something like 90% of men said that they wanted a deep friendship and they didn't currently have it. That's a huge number of men. Yeah. And they all said the same thing when I asked them, like, well, what do you want? Like, what is your advice? Those of you who do have friends. And they said, you have to be the one who initiates the friendship. They said, everybody wants the other person to initiate, but when everybody wants the other person to initiate, nobody initiates. But because everybody wants the other person to initiate, that means they'll be fine if you text them. You don't have to overthink. You can send them that text that says, like, do you want to hang out? Do you want to go out for coffee? Let's go play some video games. Let's go here. Let's do that. And if they say no, who cares? Try again. And people don't want to be like, people want to feel pursued regardless of what kind of relationships it. That's with family too. Like people want like their family to reach out. They want their, romantic interests to reach out. Guys also want their friends to reach out too and ask like, hey, I heard your wife had a hard day. Are you doing okay? Can we go out and have some talks? And I think the more men kind of shed that like macho thing of like, well, if I have a friend, he'll reach out to me, and it's not all about us. Like we need to be those initiators. It's the same thing with bringing conversations to a deeper level. Sometimes it's scary, but sometimes you have to be the one who gets vulnerable first in order for the relationship to get deeper. Because I'm telling you, 99 times out of 100, the times I've been vulnerable first, they've been vulnerable right back. And when I talk about something I struggle with, a lot of times they've been like, oh my gosh, me too. Why does no one talk about that? And then all of a sudden you've built this bond that is getting deeper and deeper and can strengthen your faith, and it takes away the loneliness. It's awful, the number of men who are just completely lonely and don't realize it and aren't willing to do anything about it.
Man, that's good and deep. Yeah. You get something, Matt?
No, not really. That's awesome. You nailed it. I'm grateful that I do have a friend that I can go to and be vulnerable with, and he just happens to be my wife's cousin's husband. His name is James, and I love him very much, and I'm very, very close with him. And so that works out. But yeah, I think most of the time what happens is that, there's like this forced relationship thing when it is complicated when you're married and you have a kid and you want to bring two families together and be friends, but it doesn't always work out. It's kind of forced and cringy, but you learn to appreciate those people, because it's hard to have people that you can have the same schedules with. So
Yeah. Moral of the story is men, text your friends or
Yeah.
text the men that you want to become friends with and be intentional. And I will say, as somebody who has been intentional with certain people and maybe not gotten the same intentionality back, just be okay with that and understand that
Yeah.
that's going to happen too. And keep going forward. Don't take that as, oh, this person doesn't want anything to do with me. It's just kind of like what you said, as like men aren't necessarily used to that, and they're not comfortable sometimes with that, but it will grow and it will build, and it'll be great. The last thing I want to talk about, I don't want to pass up the opportunity, because you were a trained professional with foster care, and you probably know a decent amount, probably more than any of our guests combined so
Oh, wow.
far. I know I'm putting a lot on you, but our whole mission here for Young Married Christian is a mission towards foster care. We want to see every child in the foster care system be put and placed into a gospel-centered home.
Amen.
And so with almost 400,000 kids in the foster care system in America, there's almost the same number, 400,000 churches in America as well. And so if we can just get one family per church to be able to step up and take in a child, the problem will be decimated, like Thanos, the way that we came together
Yeah.
as Avengers. So let's, be the Avengers of the church. I don't know. I got off on a tangent there. So my question to you is, if you could speak to somebody who's maybe thinking or toying with the idea of foster care, what are some things that would be good for them to know that's not maybe fake news that they might be hearing and seeing out there?
So one thing that I tell people that are interested in foster care, so there's different levels, and every state is different too, depending on where you live. But it is one of the greatest needs in America right now. Like, that is like a big need and a humongous void that is easily filled. But there is a lot of emotional energy that goes into it that you can be trained and you can be informed on how to handle. So when people, for instance, I encourage people who struggle with having children to foster to adopt. I encourage them to definitely have their own marital counseling, because you need to be a strong family unit first to bring in a foster child of any age, especially teenagers. But if you're pursuing it, then I would get training, as much training, get counseling, get training, learn about trauma-based, trauma-informed care for a child. Go to everything. Learn as much as you possibly can about child development. Go to every training your county offers. Normally, those trainings are free if you're doing foster care. And not only that, when you finally accept a child for foster care, like, you get to choose what ages you want. You get to choose the ethnicity of the child. You get to choose whether or not you're willing to take a child who's been through, certain events in their life or certain traumatic things, like, depending on your ability to handle what they've been through and the effects of that. It's that easy. Like, you get to say, okay, this is what we're willing to handle, and this is how many we're able to handle, and we're able to handle the fact that this might not work, because unfortunately most of the time it doesn't. And just go into the game realizing that first. And working, I worked at a, I can't say too much about where I worked, but I can describe a little bit of what I did. I did what's called prep and profile, which is preparing a child for adoption, possible adoption, while also creating a profile of their life, because these children, what they go through is unspeakable most of the time. If they're in foster care, it's because they've got it really bad. They have a very, very difficult life and traumatic life that they've lived. And they need stability desperately. So part of prep and profile is assembling that child's life into a booklet that you can give them to say, this is where I've been, this is the houses I've been, this is the things that I like. Because these kids, they're like thrown around like ping pongs. They just go from house to house most of the time. They go from school to school. They are usually never able to have any type of stability in their life at all, which creates a lot of mental stress. And it's very, very sad. So what the profile does is helps them have like some type of foundation that they can hold in their hands and say, this is where I've been, this is where I've gone. And then they can continue adding to that as they progress. so that when they are adopted too, they can also hand that to their, or yeah, if they are adopted or they go into a foster home, they can hand that to their foster parents and say, this is, they can talk. It's a point of connection for them as well. And the profile, that's called a life book. The profile itself is a humongous compilation of, all the things they've been through on a more like database sense. And that is very difficult as well to read sometimes. Sometimes the worst reading. Anyways, I could talk about this for a very long time. I'm going to try and condense it. But if you're going into foster care, or you're pursuing it, like I said, get all the training you can. Prepare yourself mentally for you only to have this child in your life for a little while, or that child to completely ruin your home, like emotionally, like physically ruin your crap, just break everything in your home. Just be prepared for that. And if you're able to mentally and emotionally prepare yourself for that, with the intent that you might be the most stable person they will ever meet, if you're able to just be a solid rock for that person, then you'll do great. You'll impact a child for the rest of their life, even if it's only for a few months that they're in there. For foster care, you will get paid depending on the state you go into. You'll actually get paid to watch that child, and the state will help you, or the county will help you with all your needs. So usually, that, and unfortunately, people do that as a job. They'll take in children and not even care for them. They'll just take the money for themselves, which is very sad. Yeah. So fostering, if you want a child or you're struggling to have a child and you want to have a child in your home and not shell out $25,000 to $50,000 to adopt a baby, fostering to adopt is the most inexpensive and most effective way of preparing yourself to be a parent. And just honestly, just preparing yourself and buffering your own emotions to be a tougher person, and dealing with the real muck and mire of just humanity, unfortunately. I always encourage foster to adopt because, like I said, you don't have to pay anything. You get a child in your home. If it's a good fit, it's beautiful. That child is like, I found a place to live. I've been I want to be here forever, and everyone's fulfilled. I mean, parenting is still hard, but you can just alter the course of a child's life forever and put them on a path of stability and just be a help to them. And not really, I don't know. It's a big decision, but I encourage anyone who knows what's ahead of them to do it, and be a light in someone's life. I'm fortunate. Shout out to Pastor Terry Lamer, my one senior pastor that I worked for several years. He has fostered and adopted like almost up to 100 kids.
Wow.
He is a gem of a human being, and I know it's because he has a strong marriage, and he just goes into it with the knowledge that these kids might leave, or they might be with us forever. So that's the thing. You just have to have that personality, and you have to get as much training as you can. So long story short, that's what I recommend. Man,
yeah. Well, thank you guys. Speaking of being a light, you guys have been a light into our lives since we've met you guys. Everything leading up to this interview, I was like geeking because James and I were like, we're so excited to meet these guys and have them here in Orlando. And I mean, when it finally came into fruition and we had you here, it was surreal. And it's been absolutely incredible to have you guys here in the studio today. If anybody has loved or even liked a little of what we've said today, how can they continue to follow your content if they're not already following it? Where would they find you?
For me, I have a couple things. Christians Who Curse Sometimes on Instagram, and then ChristiansWhoCurseSometimes.com.
Yeah, you can follow us on Facebook, Memes for Jesus, or Instagram, Memes for Jesus. And be on the lookout for the new stuff we're putting out very soon, which will be announced somewhere.
And just so we know, the podcast names.
So I'm gonna say Memes for Jesus podcast. You can still, we have a big backlog of guests that we've had on, really great interviews. Memes for Jesus. You can find it on Spotify and Apple. And you have a podcast?
I don't have a podcast.
Okay.
People ask me to have one, and I just keep saying I don't have time because I don't.
Yeah, he's more than capable of having a stellar podcast, but he doesn't have one. So
well, hey,
unfortunate.
Thank you guys so much. Once again, guys, stay young, stay married, but definitely stay Christian. See you next time.
Hey, y'all, we hope you loved this conversation. Here at Young Married Christian, we are on a mission to see a gospel-centered home made available for every single child in the foster care system. There are 400,000 kids in the foster care system, and there are 400,000 churches in America. Wow, that is crazy. This is absolutely a solvable problem, and we want to be a part of it. If you want to join us in that mission, text the word freedom to 833-370-1610.
833-370-1610. 833-370-1610.
I just did it.
And another thing you can do that is really helpful is to smash the like button on this video.
Smash it like Satan's face. Crush it like it's Lucifer's head.
It really helps us a ton, so smash that like button, subscribe to this channel.
That's it.
Smash the like button on this video.